Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody. Shelley, I think everybody heard that you finally had a couple months of minutes to approve, so they all just wanted to hear us approve that, so. Thank you for coming, everybody. The time is now 3:30, and I call the June 18th, 2024 meeting of the St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission to order. This meeting is being held in person and virtually on the fourth floor council chambers of the County City Building. We will first ask for any public comment for those sitting in the chambers and those in the public attending remotely. For public comment from those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function and/or message the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask that board members state their name when making a motion and a second. At this time, everyone please silence your cell phone so they do not disturb the meeting. Shelley, may we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Devon,
Here?
Mr. Krasinski,
Present.
Ms. Hannon. Here. Mr. England,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Matzett,
Present.
Dr. Thacker. We have 7 members present.
Thank you, Shelley. We are a 9-member.
Mr. Tavernier,
Oh.
sorry. Thank you.
Vito's not here. Thank you, Shelley. We are a 9-member commission. We currently have 7 members present in person. If any petitioner would prefer to have their petition heard with more members present, they may ask staff to have their item tabled for a future meeting when more members might be present. Now we have the roll call. Can we please have the first rezoning petition, please?
Rezoning a combined public hearing on a proposed ordinance of Insignia LLC to zone from O Office District to B Business District and seeking the following variance from section 154.372 sub F2 to allow a freestanding multi-tenant sign to have a front yard southwest setback of 2 foot where 10 feet is required. Property located at plus or minus 3.49 acres south of the intersection of Brick Road and State Road 23. St. Joseph County, APC application number 3043-24.
Good afternoon, Faryal Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. We have a rezoning for property just south of the intersection of Brick and State Road 23. There is one variance requested as well. The property is currently zoned office district. In 2012, it was rezoned to that district for proposed office development that was never completed. The current petitioners would now like to develop the site, but in addition to office use, they are proposing a couple retail uses that would not be permitted in the current district. So they're requesting that rezone to business. The property line does not go all the way to the road. As to the north, there is an INDOT retention basin and state right-of-way. This picture shows the site as standing from across State Road 23. Here's a closer look. There's an existing drive on site. I think the fence on the left there is the INDOT retention area. The developers will need to consult with INDOT for anything within the right-of-way for State Road 23 and for access there. There's a sidewalk in front. Looking east down SR 23, you can see the Capitol Cove multi-tenant development, which is zoned B business. Across the street is an office-zoned office buffer and a credit union zoned business. State Road 23 is a 4-lane state highway with dedicated left and right turn lanes at the intersection with Brick. According to MACOG traffic counts, the average annual daily traffic count is over 20,000 vehicles. Here's the same intersection from Brick. They are proposing to add additional access onto Brick Road to the site. The wooded area is what would be part of the frontage and access onto Brick. The actual east lot line of the property is behind that house in the corner there. They would need to provide screening where they abut any residential zoning or residential use. Looking a bit farther down Brick Road toward the Mallard Point subdivision. And finally, this is on Evergreen Road, so from the other side. The home and woods there are parcels that abut the property to the west, and the west lot line of the subject property is behind the home and woods on screen. All right, here's the site plan as provided. It shows a proposed two-story building in the southeast corner with space for multiple tenants. As mentioned, 2 drives proposed for access, a new one onto Brick. Developer will need to consult with the county engineer for that access onto Brick, which I believe they have done. County engineer also states so the site must meet St. Joseph County standards for drainage. A septic system is proposed to serve the site as shown in the southwest corner. The county health department states that this commercial septic system will need to be approved by the Indiana Department of Health and meet their standards. As far as landscaping and development standards related to parking, they're not asking for any variances there. The plan shows areas where the existing vegetation will remain, and additional evergreen screening will be installed along the inside edge. Going on to state law criteria, we're recommending it be sent favorably. The rezoning is supported by the 2002 comprehensive plan, particularly Goal 2, Objective C, which is to develop quality business areas to meet the retail and planning needs of the community. Specifically, policy 1 and 4 of that objective directs the county to provide for functionally sized commercial sites at the regional, community, and neighborhood levels, and states that satellite business centers shall be located on major transportation routes, particularly at the intersection of major arterial highways. The current use is a mix of single-family homes, most of which do not have frontage on SR 23, as well as business and office uses which do front the highway. The most desirable use is a mixed-use or lower-intensity office or business development that would serve the nearby residential neighborhood population. And provided the petitioner meets development standards and provides that landscaping screening, the rezoning should not affect property values adversely. The proposal is pretty similar to what was permitted in the previous office zoning, and the business district would allow some additional uses while still excluding more intense commercial uses that could negatively affect the neighborhood. Staff is recommending favorably on the rezoning. There is 1 variance associated. We require a 10-foot setback for freestanding signs, but since the property line is quite far from the road, they're requesting a 2-foot setback so that's visible. Staff is recommending the variance be approved. Here's a rendering of that sign. It would be a multi-tenant sign, meets the standards for area and height there. The site plan, so where the red circle is, does show you a close-up of where that sign would be located next to the drive on SR 23. For state law criteria for the variance, it's unlikely to be injurious as it will practically be placed farther from the road, not impeding the view of drivers or presenting safety concerns. For area adjacent, monument-style signs are common for office developments along SR 23. There's a couple right across the road. Will also not be in the line of sight for any residential nearby properties. Finally, on practical difficulty, as noted before, there's a significantly large right-of-way in front of the property, so placing the sign farther back would make it harder for visitors to view it and to mark the site. In summary, staff recommends the variance be approved and that the rezoning be sent with a favorable recommendation. The rezoning would allow for a development of a vacant lot that serves the surrounding area while still restricting more intense uses. I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions by the commission at this time? Seeing none, do we have the petitioner, please?
Good afternoon, Chris Godlewski, Avid Marsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. Thank you for the favorable recommendation. I represent Insignia LLC as well. She kind of covered a lot of the bases. The project is about to go to plan review with the county, so we vetted a lot of those reviews with the state and highway and had preliminary meetings. If you look at this area, it has been zoned office for 10 years and sat vacant, so the purpose of the rezoning is to get some light retail uses in there. If you look at that corridor in Brick, the MACOG traffic counts are trending up over the last 10 years, so, and you could see from that initial map that some of the other parcels, even further north and east, have also been zoned for business or office. So, and the variance for the sign, as she mentioned, there's a large retention in the area, so the hope was to get as close to the road as possible, which is still about 100 feet off. So that's the general overview. I ask for your approval of this, and I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody present wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please come forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, Anybody online wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none. Anybody present wishing to speak against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Theron Roberts. I live at 14297 State Road 23 in Granger. I'm speaking in opposed to the parcel rezoning. I'm an owner of the local historic landmark that is a little more than 600 feet to the north of the intersection of Brick and State Road 23. Because of my landmark status, I was able to be, had a unique perspective of being involved in 2008 with the design considerations for expanding State Road 23 from 2 to 5 lanes. At that time, there were concerns because of the oblique angle of Brick to 23 and the need for dedicated turn lanes onto 23 and to put in islands. Could you pull up the site plan that includes the lane so people can understand what I'm saying? Okay, so where there are islands on Brick on west of the intersection on the right turn lanes, and then also heading on the east side of the intersection, heading west again. So there were some concerns about people turning right because there's a sidewalk, as you can see, it angles from on the right-hand side, on the south side of 23. Anyway, all these measures were put in place to not only prevent accidents, but also to prevent accidents involving pedestrians. So my opposition's based on 2 factors. First, the buyer knew the parcel was zoned office and it has 6 residential home sites on 3 sides, not including the side facing 23. There are 0 businesses and 0 office parcels on State Road 23 between Capitol and Cherry that have more than 3 residential home sites bordering them. There are 0 with 3 or more. So he has 6. Second, and most importantly, traffic in and out of businesses would be hazardous at best. I mean, just imagine. So if you look at the drive that's proposed on the site plan, exiting onto 23, I measured that. It's 102 feet from the east side of the driveway to where the stop line is for traffic going at that traffic signal intersection. 102 feet, okay? At 50 miles an hour, a car goes 80 feet in 1 second. Imagine somebody trying to turn left onto 23 from the parcel. You have a traffic signal, people see green. They said it was over 20,000. The actual last May HUD count was 22,000 of those heading south. Of those 22,000, 4,000 are trucks. And I live across there. Many of them are tanker trucks. We know that the Granger Depot, oil depot site run by BP is, just down the road. So you got trucks going 50 miles an hour, people trying to get out, got 80 feet to decide after the traffic light is if it's clear or not. And so we're asking for a lot of split-second decisions involving safety and potential injuries. My proposal is for the APC to consider rezoning if the parcel owner acquires the lot. It's just on the lower left side there indicated. There's some greenery around it, but it's the bordering lot. The address is 52086 Evergreen. If you're able to do that, then thank you. So there's that red triangle is one lot that's vacant, and then the actual site that I'm referring to is the house that's on the lower left with the red box. That has access to Evergreen. If you put the traffic that they're proposing onto 23 through Evergreen, now you have 500 feet. instead of 102 feet. So I know that this isn't necessarily the APC's decision about.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
Thank you. About whether or not the traffic comes out here or there. But either way, don't let it come out on 23. Require that it only comes out on brick and remain, have the zoning remain office. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak against this petition that's present? Please come forward. Seeing none. Is there anybody online wishing to speak against this petition? Please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, I will now close this to the public. Chris, you have 5 minutes, or no, you have 10 minutes to rebut.
Yep, again, Chris Godlewski, Avid Marsh. Yeah, some good comments brought up. First, there's no plans to expand the site. That drive, what you've seen, is what NDOT put in, and we would utilize that drive access. It's gonna be a right-in, right-out only. There could never be a left turn there because it's too big, too close to the intersections. That's the plan, and that's what NDOT's gonna require. The drive on brick, it's gonna be designed to whatever county specifications for access and safety. And so that intersection's as far east as it can go, is as safe as can be in that part of the lot. Yeah, and in relevance to the adjoining parcels of residential, there have to be a type 2 buffer, and that's the most stringent buffer between a business use and a residential use, and that'll be on the east. Basically, 3 sides of the property will be buffered, and then the lighting will be also designed so it doesn't leave the site as per county standards. So those are pretty stringent standards to design the site. That's in a general response. I don't know if I missed anything, or if you have any more questions for me.
So that access off of State Road 23, that is a right-in, right-out? Because that was one of my big concerns, because that is, I mean, I
Absolutely.
drive that
Yep,
2-3 times a day, and that would be a very, coming south on 23 would be
And
a
there'll be
hard left turn.
a
if that
center
was-
barrier in that drive where you can only go in one way and you can only go out that way, so it's not an open access.
It is hard to see, but it's on the print.
Yeah.
That is a little older. The ones we're submitting to the county show a barrier in the middle, and again, that's what's NDOT's gonna drive on this.
Okay. That was my biggest concern
Yep.
on that. Any other questions?
Chris, so you've had correspondence with NDOT then in regards to
Yep.
the access?
I think we're at the point of bonding the intersection at this point, so we've been, through the gamut of reviews and communication. Yep.
Did they recommend a right in and right out on?
Yeah, but we kind of knew ahead of time that was gonna be the case, so, yep.
Okay, thank you.
This is a combined public hearing, so we have a rezoning and a variance to approve or deny to vote on. So if there's any other comments, otherwise do we have a motion for the rezoning first?
Robert Krasinski, I'll make a motion for, approve the rezoning of ABC 3043-24.
That's a motion to send favorably.
To send favorably to the
Favorable to the county council.
DJ Tavernier, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to send favorably on the rezoning for APC 3043-24 to the St. Joseph County Council. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. England?
Yes.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Mattsit?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. That is 7-0, motion carries. Now, do we have a motion for the variance?
Robert Krasinski, I'll make a motion to send the variance to the county council with a favorable recommendation, APC 3043-24.
I think clarification, we approve the variance. We don't send that to the council.
Yeah, the variance is your decision.
So we have a motion to approve the variance. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance for APC 3043-24. Can we have a vote, please?
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. England?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Kozinski?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes, variance is approved. Thank you. We have a reading for item number B. We have two items for number B, so the first text amendment, please.
A proposed ordinance amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code, Sections 154.513, 154.515, and 154.516 to revise the use permissions and development standards for large-scale solar energy systems, SES, renewable energy systems. ABC application number 3044-24.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as I have property that's located in the middle of a proposed solar farm, I will like to be recused from this discussion and vote for this text amendment.
Okay.
And I have discussed with Mr. Massett, it does qualify for a financial conflict, so I have advised him to
Okay.
recuse.
Okay.
All right. Faryal Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. We have before you a text amendment to the Renewable Energy Systems chapter of the zoning ordinance. These amendments pertain to large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems over 40,000 square feet of panel area or more. Before we get into the actual amendments that are before you, I want to provide a bit of background. In 2018, the county commissioners issued a statement with the goal that the county would take steps to receive a high ranking in the SolSmart program. Funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, this is a national designation that jurisdictions and municipalities can receive based on their solar friendliness and best practices. To fulfill the Board of Commissioners' request to achieve the SolSmart designation, in early 2020, St. Joseph County initiated an ordinance to regulate solar energy in the county. Prior to this, the zoning ordinance did not directly address solar energy systems or contain specific development standards applicable to their use. As noted in the 2020 staff report and ordinance, the goal of this ordinance was to create reasonable regulations to make solar energy technology harmonious with the county. The ordinance was sent forward with a favorable recommendation from this body and passed by the County Council 8-0. Since then, a number of large-scale solar energy systems, what I may call large-scale SES, have or are in the process of being developed. This text amendment has been brought forward in consultation with members of the St. Joseph County Council to modify regulations around large-scale SES. In addition, staff also consulted the President of the Board of Commissioners, the Area Plan Commission President, the Chair of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals for feedback on the proposed changes. Staff also conducted research on solar ordinances in 53 counties to help shape the proposed changes. In the state of Indiana, there are 92 counties. 82 of these have zoning regulations recognized by state statute according to APA Indiana. Of these 82, 53 or 65% were found to have regulations around large-scale or commercial solar facilities, and those were the ones we looked at for research. Now, the changes to this ordinance can really be broken down into two parts. The first of these are administrative in nature, while the second modify use permissions and development standards. I will start by going over the administrative updates. These are updates and changes that have been requested by developers, the public, and staff based on our experience reviewing large-scale projects since the 2020 ordinance was adopted. The first is to add language to clarify a decommissioning agreement. The ordinance requires a decommissioning agreement for when large-scale SES projects reach the end of their operation. The agreement would require them to remove all structures, equipment, and restore the site so that it can be repurposed. However, current language does not require a decommissioning agreement to be formalized by an elected body. This amendment formalizes a decommissioning agreement to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. Second, the ordinance requires a security fund in the form of cash, bond, irrevocable letter of credit, or other means to pay for removal of any abandoned or non-compliant panels or equipment for up to 125 of the cost of demolition and removal, capped at $250,000. This amendment would remove that cap to allow for more sufficient funds. Additionally, it would be benchmarked to the Consumer Price Index to account for inflation. The third is related to the required pollinator landscaping. The zoning ordinance currently requires 2 square feet of pollinator-friendly seed mixes and native plants for every 1 square foot of solar panel. Concerns have been raised by the environmental and agricultural communities on the seed mix for prior projects. The proposal is to require a third-party review of the seed mix at the cost of the developer when deemed necessary by the zoning administrator. Finally, this amendment would remove the requirement for paved drives. Currently, a requirement is to pave the first 50 feet of access drives to solar sites, but this was found not to be in line with the requirements of other zoning ordinances, and the county engineer did not view it as a necessary requirement. The next set of updates concern changes to the use permissions and some new development standards. First, this text amendment would make large-scale SES a special use in the A agricultural district. So currently, it is a permitted use. It would amend the current use table as shown on screen to make it a special use. Research conducted by staff has found that this change would be in line with other Indiana counties. Again, we looked at the 53 counties that we found have formal solar regulations in their zoning ordinances. On screen, you'll see both a table and a pie chart showing use permissions in other Indiana counties. The majority, 59%, require a special or conditional use for large-scale SES. After that, 26% have it as a permitted use, and 13% have some kind of overlay district. This shows that most counties require some form of public hearing process. Second, this text amendment proposes additional development standards that would apply to large-scale solar energy systems. This includes a minimum distance setback for when solar panels are located near a non-participating property owner, as in someone who is not a project owner or under contract with the project. The setback would be measured as a greater of 150 feet from a non-participating property line or 250 feet from a non-participating residence. And that would be measured from the edge of the solar panels to the property line or to the foundation of the primary dwelling unit. Property owners may also waive this requirement if so desired through an agreement that must be notarized and recorded. We found that waiver language to be very common in other ordinances. Staff conducted research on the same counties and found that many of them also require increased setbacks from property lines, from dwelling units, or from both. As far as the size of these setbacks, when measured from a dwelling unit or residence, staff found the most common setback distance is between 100 to 300 feet. When measured from a property line, the most common was between 50 to 150 feet. I also gave the median number to drill it down, broken by use permission. So if you're looking at the table, where large-scale solar systems are a special use, as is being proposed, the median setback is 250 feet from a dwelling unit and 100 feet from a property line. We are proposing 250 from a dwelling unit and 150 from a property line, so it's very much in line with that. The other development standard proposed is related to landscaping. Currently, no landscaping is required beyond the native plantings mentioned earlier. The zoning ordinance does have a type of landscaping requirement utilized in other sections called Type 2 full screening. This is stated as a minimum of 4 evergreen trees per every 30 feet of the lot line in a double staggered row. The proposal here is to require that Type 2 landscaping to be planted along property lines abutting a platted residential development or residential subdivision containing 10 lots or more. In summary, this text amendment will allow for a number of administrative updates requested by developers, the public, and staff. Staff has brought this forward in consultation and conversation with county councilors, the president of the county commissioners, the chairs of our boards, and those being the APC and the ABZA. It would make large-scale solar energy systems a special use in the A district, which would require 2 public hearings and final approval of any petitions by the county council. Lastly, it would add 2 additional development standards related to minimum setbacks for large-scale SES and required landscaping. Staff has found these changes to be consistent with those of the other 53 counties studied that regulate large-scale solar in their zoning ordinances. This is a text amendment. Just as a reminder, the process is that we will need a recommendation from you all to be sent to the county council. Staff is recommending this be sent forward favorably. We have received a number of emails and inquiries from the public related to this text amendment and to solar development projects more generally. Many are requesting a moratorium to be placed on any new or impending solar projects in the county. 16 of these emails specifically asked to consider placing a moratorium. Most are from individual residents who cite concerns to property values, loss of farmland, effects on wildlife and local ecosystems, aesthetic concerns, and a desire to have more time for public input on proposed projects, including a potential solar facility in their area near North Liberty. We received 1 written letter with the same sentiments, asking for a moratorium, citing similar concerns. Other than those asking specifically for a moratorium, 1 email just cited general concerns related to a solar project, while 2 were asking for general information and follow-up. As far as calls documented, we have received 4 calls or voicemails, 2 of them specifically requesting a moratorium, and 2 inquiring about information and details on proposed projects. We received 1 letter of support related to this text amendment from a representative from an Indiana coalition that states they work to support responsible renewable energy development, as well as private property rights of all landowners, and would like a balanced approach to solar development. We additionally received 3 emails from residents today expressing support generally for solar and solar projects. All of this has been provided to you. At this point, I can take any questions about the amendment.
Thank you, Fario. Any questions by the commission at this time? I would like to reiterate a couple things. After reviewing a lot of the emails that were brought in that staff provided to the commission, a lot of them did have mention of asking for a moratorium. Just to remind everybody that's here, the general public, our commission, our board, all we are allowed to do is vote in favorably, against, or to table a product that is in front of us. So right now, we are voting on a text amendment changes for the overall solar ordinance. We are not voting on a specific site. We are not voting on a specific project that may be coming up or down the road. It's a general text amendment to a solar ordinance that is currently, which is brought together. I was one of the members that was part of that group to help fine tune some of those changes that we already had on the ordinance to make it a little bit more stringent against, to make it more friendly for the general public. So for those of you that are here to voice your concerns for wanting a moratorium, this is not that place or time. We are not voting on a moratorium at this time. So please refrain from promoting for a moratorium. That is a different procedure. That is a different process. All we are allowed to do is vote on or against these specific text amendments. So just for clarification, if you're here for or against these, please come forward. You're going to have your time. Everybody's going to have 5 minutes to speak for or against these. Please try and refrain from repeating somebody else's comments. We want you all to speak your mind. That's what the public is for. That's what this public portion is for. But please try and keep it from refraining from additional comments. So if there's no other comments or questions by the staff, I will now open this to the public because this was a text amendment presented by the staff, so there is no presentation. So anybody that is here for this text amendment changes, please come forward and state your name and address. You are going to have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Scott Reamer. I work with Hexagon Energy. My address is 321 East Main Street in Charlottesville, Virginia. In terms of speaking for or against this bylaw, I've worked, okay, so stepping back. My company and I have been working on a particular solar project in this area, and this is not a commentary on that particular project so much as it is a commentary on this bylaw. I've worked on projects similar to this one that we are working on here across much of the country and worked with many, many different bylaws and seen many. And I actually want to take a moment to applaud the staff here for what they've put together. The bylaw that is being proposed is very, very in line, just like they stated, with what I've seen not only in Indiana, but in many other counties across the country. So for that, we're grateful. My team and I started working on a project here back in about 2018 or 2019, right around the time that St. Joe had indicated that they were interested in being a solar-friendly community. When we began that process, we started looking for areas and we found some property and reached out to some landowners near a very large substation called the Dumont Substation, and have since been working with many landowners to come to agreement. Underneath the understanding that the St. Joe County bylaw is in fact very favorable, and St. Joe wants solar projects in the county just like this one. So we began making agreements. We've invested heavily in this. Like I mentioned, this zoning bylaw I think is very reasonable and fits many things. The only request that I would have as this is analyzed and looked at and you guys vote on it is two things. First, the setbacks are reasonable, but in many of our planning discussions with various landowners and the acreage that we plan on working with, we have been planning on a slightly smaller setback rather than the 150. So we would ask that that be somewhat shortened, perhaps to 75 feet. And then the second would be that for projects that can demonstrate a certain level of development effort, namely a certain percentage of the acreage required for the project, as well as an interconnection application submitted to the grid manager called PJM, that those be safeguarded as some way to be fit under the existing bylaw that we began development and have spent the last several years developing under. That would be my technical request. So I don't know if I should have spoken for or against here necessarily, except to say that broadly, things like this decommissioning bond that will certainly provide certainty that a project can be decommissioned and removed at the end of its life and the farm ground is in fact protected, very much in support of that. Likewise with the screening buffer, we think this is a really bang-up zoning bylaw overall that's being proposed. Again, the two requests there would be that the special use permit for projects that can demonstrate certain amounts of development would be not required, that it would stay by right, and then likewise that the zoning setback would be 75 feet. I would like to take one moment, we have a very full room here this evening. In the last few weeks, there has seemed to be a flurry of activity of people who seem that they have believe that they've discovered this project as if it has been one of our projects. There are several in development. One of them that has been in development and have begun lobbying a lot of accusations and becoming very, very vocal in their opposition to solar generally and across the board. Something that my team and I, this caught us by surprise. We've been working with many landowners on this. Over 24 have agreements with us on one of these projects. This has caught us somewhat by surprise. And I feel like there's been a tidal wave of outpouring of opposition to this. What I wanted to take a moment here tonight with this room is demonstrate St. Joe has a lot of support for solar projects, and there is a lot of reason for this. St. Joe needs a lot of power. You have a Microsoft facility going in. You have an Amazon facility going in. You have a battery manufacturing plant going in. These all require power. Last week at the county council hearing, somebody asked, are we going to face rolling brownouts because of these? Somebody said, well, no, except maybe on the hottest days, like today, when the air conditioner is taxing the system. Guess what? Solar arrays are perfect at providing power on those very, very hot days when air conditioners are running. We believe this fits very well. A project like the one called Dumont Solar near North Liberty will provide over $50 million of tax revenue to the county and hundreds of jobs during its construction period. We have several landowners, several community members, and a large number of folks that are here tonight. I don't know if we could get a quick demonstration of folks that are supportive broadly of this solar project here tonight. To say
You have 30 seconds.
opposition is not the only voice in town, and we think solar has a lot to offer. And we applaud the county for this reasonable regulation, but ask for a protection of the projects that we've been working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Amy Drake, County Council with offices on the 4th floor. The solar ordinances in front of you today were a compromise after some of us sat down together, the area plan, the council, and the commissioner's office. Currently, our county has only 30-foot setbacks for solar, which is shockingly low. Even the state suggests 250 feet from the main dwelling. Additionally, about 75% of counties with large-scale solar energy regulations have special use requirements or something similar in regard to solar going up on ag land. St. Joe County, with no requirement that solar go through any additional zoning requirement, makes us in the minority. Industrial units like commercial solar are certainly a different use than is what is typically found in agricultural fields, and it should be treated that way. The new solar rules being brought to you today are a good start and are simply common sense guidelines that I'm hoping will earn wide support today. However, I don't think they are the final product, and as a member of the County Council, I am interested in pursuing a moratorium, and we will be working in that regard. We have 4 members of the County Council, at least, that are in favor of a moratorium, as well as 2 members of the County Commission. So what I'm asking today is that we get these rules passed so we have a baseline, so that if we do have a moratorium go through, when that moratorium list will have something in place already, and then we can work on something better. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy.
Good afternoon, Steve Francis, 2-Day Lake Drive, Clay Township. By way of introduction, I was state chair of the world's largest conservation organization for 10 years. I'm a solar proponent. We worked very hard to expand rooftop solar in the state of Indiana, to expand compensation and incentives so that we would put solar on top of rooftops first, rather than open field or extending it in large swaths. And we were successful for 5 years. And then the Indiana legislature terminated basically the net metering program. Rooftop solar, for all practical purposes in Indiana, is very difficult, almost dead. So I support this as a reasonable balance here. I was involved marginally with the original SolSmart program. Our hope was that we would get something in place before we had a lot of activity in this county, that it would be clear to developers and to the community what was required, decommissioning, all of that, setbacks, whatever, and that we wouldn't go through repeated opposition to specific projects. However, I am a proponent of a special use in this case, because I think that it does give the opportunity to the public, as I support that in terms of open transparency, to state their views and to have an opportunity to be pro or con on large projects such as this. However, I do think that there is a project going forward right now based upon the existing statute. And I think it would be very unfair for the council to call into question or put a moratorium when money has been spent in terms of developing that project already. And therefore, and opening itself up possible lawsuits as well, because you can't change it in the middle of that kind of project. I don't believe that would be fair. Secondly, I don't like the setbacks, but I think they're reasonable. I think they could be much larger, and I know in some areas there was one county calling for a mile setback. Larger setbacks are simply ways to kill solar energy projects in the state of Indiana, and they've been used effectively in other counties to basically stop development. And so I encourage you to not expand the setbacks. I prefer an industrial setback, I believe, from an agricultural land is only 50 feet. You can have a big agricultural or industrial building 50 feet away from a farmer's property, out in New Carlisle, for example. They're looking at a 5-story building eventually. Solar is very clean. It's very safe. It doesn't create noise. It doesn't create dust after construction. It doesn't pollute the waterways. It does not pollute the air. It is a clean source of energy. We have a national commitment to that. I do encourage you pass this. I will be fighting any additional exemptions or extensions of that setback at the county council because I think that these are reasonable. Any further setbacks would be making solar projects outside the realm of feasibility in terms of economics. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you do pass this on as stated, and then we can hear it before the council.
Thank you, Steve.
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Jacobs. I'm a development director with LightSource BP. We are the company that developed the Honeysuckle Solar Project that is on State Road 20, that is west of South Bend and east of New Carlisle. And I want to speak tonight also in general in favor of what's being proposed. Many of those proposals, I think, have been born, especially the kind of the first four, have been born out of conversations and working with your staff. It's kind of a lessons learned on both sides. So we feel that certainly the administrative things that have been put forward would be beneficial both to developers but also to the county as a whole. Like some of the previous speakers, I also find some concern with the setback. Although I don't think that they are unreasonable, I do think that they are bordering on getting a little bit bigger than what would be economically viable. Just to give you some context, so as was previously stated, under the current ordinance with ag, the setback was only 30 feet. Our project, though, we did build our fence line at 50 feet, and then there was an additional setback of 20 to 30 feet beyond the fence. So the majority of ours, if you're actually measuring to the solar panel, the majority of our project was in the 75 to 80-foot setback in line with what the gentleman had mentioned earlier. We find that to be a pretty reasonable setback in an agricultural area. Especially in context, and again, as the previous speaker mentioned, I was reviewing your ordinance with industrial and noted the 50-foot setback from things such as data centers, factories, sewage treatment plants, dry cleaners, kennels, arenas, bus stations, recycling drop-off, all things that are permitted use in industrial, which I find would be more of a nuisance to a neighboring property owner than what solar would be. Also noting that even a landfill only has a 100-foot setback. Granted, I understand that there's also some screening around some of these that aren't necessarily being discussed in this, but we would ask that you take a good look at these setbacks and possibly reduce those from what's being presented. We think that you have a good opportunity. We hope that we've been a good partner to the county. We've tried to be. We've tried to be a good neighbor to our folks that we're aware of. There are no complaints or concerns that have sort of materialized from our project. And I think that a good project that has reasonable requirements, such as what St. Joseph County already has, can be built and continue to be a good citizen. One last thing, I'll mention on the special use portion, and I certainly understand where you're coming from on that, and that is not something that is unusual, but it also is a matter of trying to build into, when a developer's coming into a project, to trying to build in some certainty as they go forward, not just with their project, but also with your constituents and the landowners. One issue, obviously, with the special exception is that creates a big unknown. Right now, St. Joseph County has been very supportive of solar. We'd like to see you continue to be supportive, and we would recommend that you put your development standards to a point in which you feel comfortable, possibly without a special exception. But overall, we do support the amendment change. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has anything specific on Honeysuckle, since we are kind of the first large-scale solar project to go into the county. I would also ask that if you have an opportunity, please drive by, take a look at what we've built, and hopefully take that into consideration for any future discussion on solar. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Joe Thomas, County Council, District A, 4th floor. I just want to reiterate Councilwoman Drake's part of her statement. This is a good start. Honeysuckle is different than this. We're talking where these properties are at. It's not a simple square or rectangle. This is not a honeysuckle. I wish it was that simple, but you're around other homes and other farms and rolling terrain, woods, heather, etc. I own some land, not there, but when I look at their property out there, it's just not a simple farm field. The special use is a very good idea. It's a good start. The setbacks, another good start. If my house was looking at solar panels without them having proper setbacks or enough distance between my house or my property to the solar panels and they're not screened properly, that's a problem. And I know the solar companies don't want to do that, but we need to have a special use and we need to have proper setbacks. It's just a good start. It's just good common sense. We get this all the time, as Mr. Krasinski always did when he was on the council, and this has kind of come on us pretty fast and furious, so we need some time to think about this and talk to our constituents. We're getting a lot of phone calls, emails on both sides, but we need to have a minimum of these setbacks. And I just want you guys to know, and gals, to hear our voice before it comes to us. And because this is a very big decision for the county, and I think that when we look at this project, for or against, we need to have all the cards on the table. The current rules going through the legislative pipeline, such as improvements in setbacks for 250 feet and extra decommissioning funds, is huge. We have to have proper decommissioning funds. If something happens down the road where we have to take these things have to be, taken apart, we have proper bond issue, so we have enough money so the county isn't holding the bag. But I just want you to hear it from us so that you know where we're coming from, at least from my point of view, not for all 9 of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing me. I'm Deborah Durrell, 21677 Aughton Road, South Bend. I was involved with some of the community members who were very concerned about honeysuckle when it first started, and I reached out to some of the people who were involved with establishing the pollinator habitat and the cover crops and what they were going to be doing with the soil. That was a few years ago, so I reached out to them again because of what I was hearing from other community members about those concerns. And this morning I did hear back from Virginia Brown, who is the Ecosystems Director for Light Source BP. And she confirms, and this is just partly for everybody's information, that the pollinator habitat is on track. They are in year 2 of a 3-year process of seeding pollinator habitat. Right now, they are doing some mowing to prevent the invasives from taking over, and that is a typical process as you are trying to establish pollinator habitat on agricultural ground because the weeds really like agricultural ground. So I think this is a real positive aspect of solar farms, and all solar farms are not the same. As a couple of people have said, not all land is the same. So I do think it's important to tailor these things. I think Area Plan has done an excellent job with answering my concerns and some of the other concerns that were voiced. But I do think that we need to continue to tailor it to the particular land, to the particular neighbors. And the setbacks, I do think, are important because as we stack these different kinds of projects together, I do think it's important to maintain some green space between them. It's not all just about what the property line has right next to them. And I will remind everyone, I care a lot about the ecosystem in this area, as many people do, but we have a century or two ago mowed down all the trees and drained the marsh. And so we are in trouble right now. We need solar. So I'm very much in support of going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Mr. President, and members of the commission, I appreciate the opportunity to address comments to the proposal that's before you. My name is Larry Kane. My address is 11268 Williams Court in Carmel, Indiana. And let me also preface the comments by my position, as with several others who have spoken, is sort of split. I favor some of the parts of the proposal and I disfavor others, so just as an advance. Let me explain why I'm interested in this subject. My brother Kerry and I are joint owners of 20 acres of farmland that was previously owned by my father and mother in Liberty Township, near where Hexagon Energy is currently developing a large-scale solar project. My adult life has been focused on working in a professional manner for the protection of environmental quality. I spent over 10 years as an employee of the State Environmental Agency, the IDEM, ending my tenure there as director of the Office of Legal Counsel for the agency. In the 30 years since, I worked in private practice as an environmental lawyer, retiring in 2019. Climate science persuades me that the elimination of fossil fuel emissions is one of the most important actions that we can take to curtail climate change. The generation of electricity from solar energy facilities is one of the best ways to eliminate fossil fuel emissions. Solar energy facilities provide environmentally clean generation of electricity. It eliminates the harmful air, water, and soil contamination that follows as being caused by fossil fuel combustion. And as an added benefit, solar and wind energy facilities produce electricity at significantly lower cost than coal-fired power plants or nuclear energy facilities. So yes, I am enthused about the prospects that the land my father farmed might well become part of a solar energy facility. With that preface, let me turn to some of the specific provisions of the proposal. I concur with the proposed revisions to Section 154.516 to establish more robust provisions to ensure that adequate funds are set aside by the owner-operator of a SES facility to decommission the facility properly. Similarly, I concur with the proposed elimination of requirement for paved roads at a solar facility as proposed for Section 154.515. However, as for the proposed larger setbacks in that same section, I would propose that the current setbacks be left as they are, or that the solar energy owner-operators be given the alternative, if they would choose, to put in sufficient screening vegetation in lieu of the increased setbacks. I think that more really effectively gets to the concerns that may be raised by people with residences near such a solar facility than the increased setbacks. I do not support the proposal for a special use designation being required for a large-scale SES in an agricultural district. My reasons are as follows. The location of an SES facility in an agricultural district does not really adversely impact in any way the ongoing use of surrounding agricultural properties. The required planting of pollinator-friendly plants among the solar panels will benefit surrounding agricultural properties. Requiring a special use designation for projects that are already far along in development will inject an element of uncertainty for such projects to developers who have invested considerable time, money, effort under existing ordinance, which allows large-scale solar facilities as a matter of permit, a permitted use in an agricultural district. I was not prepared really to address moratoriums, and I understand the president of the commission says that's not
Mr. Kane,
on the
your
table.
5 minutes is up.
Okay.
Sorry. Please
Thank
wrap
you.
up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Clay. Address 27433 Inwood Road, North Liberty, Indiana. Hi to some of my fellow community members after our beautiful Strawberry Festival. It's nice to see some of you guys again. I live in North Liberty. I love my community. I love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors. I love the rural lifestyle that my area gives to me and my 3-year-old son. And I am here in support of some of this text amendment. I am an environmentalist professionally and personally, so to see our community incorporate a pollinator seed mix element within this, instead of just a low-profile cover crop species like clover or maintaining a mowed area through these solar arrays. I'm really happy to see that there's pollinator seed mix narrative within this. I'm also in support of the native buffer planting, those landscape screening areas. I think that'll help with the aesthetic of being adjacent to some of these development areas. I would recommend the keyword native into landscape buffer zones. We have lost a lot of biodiversity and native species in our region here in St. Joseph County and Midwest region. And also maybe being flexible for not just strictly evergreen species, because there's so very few in our region that are native, that haven't been inflicted by certain blight species or just dieback. So just incorporating a native element of other tree species in that landscape buffer zone. But yeah, I'm happy to see that we're incorporating some pollinator and native buffer plantings.
Thank you, Clay.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who has come here today to participate. Can you hear me, or no?
Please state your name and address, sir.
Okay, so first of all, my name is John J. Baguki. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of my mother, sister, and late father, John A. Baguki. We reside at 66603 Pine Road, North Liberty, Indiana. So I would like to thank everyone for coming here to participate in the civic process. It is readily apparent that we are all here today because the place that we live and call home is very important to us. My mother and father began discussions with a solar developer back in 2019, having been approached to explore how our beloved farm and wooded rural oasis, which has been home since 1985, could help provide clean, renewable solar energy to the country. Having reviewed the website of the Rethink Industrial Solar in St. Joe County group, I see shared core beliefs of respecting the land, protecting wildlife, and savoring our pastoral harmony. So I believe that we can all work together to create a unique opportunity for the land in St. Joe County to rest and recuperate and recover some of the natural prairie that was part of our area at one time. This would also be in tune, for those of you who live nearby, with the multiple prairie restoration projects within Potato Creek State Park in the southern portion of the county, if you're not familiar. Environmental progress can and should encompass the best practices of supporting native plants, pollinators, and animal life. These are the considerations we have worked to enshrine with the full cooperation of the developer of our own property. This responsible stewardship is what everyone here wants. In the spring 2024 issue of the Nature Conservancies magazine, there is featured an article on agrovoltaics, a term for the coexistence of food production and solar power while minimizing habitat disruption and even increasing biodiversity through perennials, native plants, and providing habitat for native insects, birds, and creatures using wildlife-friendly and aesthetically pleasing design. The responsibility that we feel and the serenity of our land is why our family supports conscientious solar projects in St. Joe County. Let's work together to allow our community to flourish with a new clean energy source, with a nature-focused design and opportunities for farming to coexist, all while maintaining the bucolic environs we cherish, so that we may someday be known as the Solar Belt rather than part of the Rust Belt. Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, with respect to the proposed amendment in question, while it is solely your responsibility to consider these potential changes in the amendment, I would petition you that the existing projects should have some sort of exemption, because with respect to the developer of our property, we have been in communication with them, and they have faithfully followed the code as it is currently written and has existed over the last 5 years. To change the code for existing ongoing projects is akin to changing rules halfway through a game. That is not fair play. In your deliberations, please take into consideration the good faith by which the current developers in our county have operated and the numerous benefits their projects bring to our local as well as national community. Again, our family comes to you today because the place we call home is so very important to us and part of who we are. This land, the nature, and harmony can truly be supported, not diminished, by the investment in solar energy. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Afternoon. My name is Frank Lucas. My address is 22095 Sunset Lane, Elkhart. I'm a construction analyst for the Foundation for Fair Contracting. My previous life, I was 16 years county commissioner for Elkhart County. So I don't envy you guys a bit for what you're going through right now. It took us well over a year just to write our ordinance. But I just wanted to stop and say that the changes you've made are great. Very important with especially your decommissioning, your setbacks, your buffering. You have to find that happy medium between the project and your residents and find some way to, so everyone can coexist. I do like your pollinator part of your ordinance, which I wish we would have had. I mean, I think that's very important. But, and also I think you need to step back and look at your existing projects that are going on, that you really can't change the rules in the middle of the process. They've been going on for years. These projects take years to develop. But I just wanted to stop and say that I think what you guys have done, you're doing the way you're going is perfect to what needs to be done. You guys have taken your responsibility very important with your residents and what the county needs. So I just wanted to stop and say that. So thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Hello, I'm Daniel Raymer, 26721 Dunn Road, South Bend. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Joe County. I'm here to speak in favor of the current solar farm ordinance. I believe our county is doing a good job transitioning to the future. It's not very often I compliment government, but in this case, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Several previously have spoken about what I'm gonna call as a grandfather clause. I know enough about construction to know that these things take years and millions of dollars to complete. So like many before me have said, at least give consideration to the projects already in the pipeline. Thank you.
James Gardner, 1001 North Michigan Street, Lakeville, Indiana. I've been through a lot of these solar ordinances from Elkhart County back into 2019, 2020, and it seems like when one of these projects come up, we're coming back and we're revamping what was already in place. Here we are again. I am speaking in favor of the current ordinance as wrote. We do have a commitment. I'm a representative of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. The developer is committed to utilizing a local workforce, utilizing local vendors for aggregates and material whenever possible. In addition to that, local businesses and local contractors to build the project. So on a positive note, for economic impact, we're looking at businesses being taken care of by this project, as well as it gives us the opportunity from the economic development that we've seen over the last 3 years, led by Bill Shalio and his team and Abby on the area and various, how should I say, public officials. This segues into the young men and women out there that are looking for lifelong careers in apprenticeship programs. We do outreach with schools. These kind of projects let us gauge what we can bring into our various apprenticeship programs for a lifelong career for a living wage, which is already attached to these projects due to credits that are already there. The only thing that is concerning to me is, as stated a couple times here, is when a project's already in motion and now all of a sudden planning millions of dollars is put into it, I would recommend, maybe not at this board, maybe not the proper venue, is to look at possible an exemption for current projects depending on what the stage may be. Over time, that will vent itself out. Hopefully, this year will be a finalization of what the ordinance is, and we won't see changes every time a project comes up in the county where we're coming back and we're dealing with this again. So hopefully we'll get this figured out and have it be a one-size-fits-all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James.
My name is Mike Wagner. I represent Wagner Farms in this. My address is 22553 New Road, South Bend, and we have probably the largest share of this project as a farmer. I'm here for my property rights. I'm going to get back to that. But first I want to tell you how important this is to the farm. We take great risk every year, millions of dollars, to produce a crop. We have no control over the weather, no control over our prices, very few control over our inputs. The solar program came to me with a chance that I could diversify my farm, give a chance for my family to prosper. This is important. I've been in the community since the 70s. I love my community. I love my neighbors. They're very good people. When solar came to me to talk to me about this, I wasn't sure about this. But we sat down, we addressed the issues I was concerned about. The water, the tile lines must be preserved. I cannot allow the water to be an issue with my property and to my neighbors. We've worked too hard for that. We have addressed these issues. I've done my very best to protect them and myself. We talked about, when I was a kid, the quail and the pheasant were plentiful. We have an opportunity now to put that back in there. Look, all this is going to be put to native grass. This farm is still very precious to me. I have a very good thought that this can
happen again. We get the quail and the pheasant going. The predators are locked out by the fence. I have a son that farms with me. I'm a third generation. He's fourth. I have grandsons that want to farm. This is an opportunity for me to protect that farm. It's an income. I have the properties right up against DuPont, the plant. I'm sorry, Anyway, there's power lines that go through it. It's always been a detriment to that property. We cannot swing big irrigation. We cannot put certain buildings. That's all has to be, can't be done with the power lines. I have a group of men that come to me and say, hey, you have an asset here. We'd like to talk to you about this. I listen to them. Put yourself in my place. If you were working for $8 an hour and someone comes along and offers you $20, $30, $40, $50 an hour, are you not going to listen to them? This helps give security to my family and to the farm operation. I'm fighting to keep the farm. At the end, my son, my grandsons are going to farm this. It's going to be in better shape than how I left it. We use tons and tons of pesticides every year. I just must. I use hundreds of tons of phosphates and nitrates that will no longer be put on this farm. A chance for it to heal. I'm a big believer in the 7-year let it rest. The way the finances are right now, I cannot do that. But I have an opportunity now to let it rest. It's not going to hurt my neighbors having solar panels out there. A lot of these amendments help me. Thank you. I'm thrilled about that. The 150-foot setback does not. We got to make sure that this works. I can't farm around it. Our equipment's too big anymore. A moratorium. God, we're 4 or 5 years into this thing. We've got incredible investment in this. Setbacks. You know, I have to deal with when you buy 20 acres, you come out into the country, you want to put trees on it. God bless you. I understand you want to do that. You have that right. You have that right. Those trees in 15 to 20 years are going to be down the tile, and it's going to hurt your neighbors around you. I get to deal with that every day. Every day I get to deal with that. But I found a way to work with my neighbors to fix that, and they've been wonderful. They give me access. Back to property rights. It seems I have property rights when I harvest corn, soybeans, and wheat. I want to now harvest sunlight too. Please give me the property right to do that. This is all about property rights. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for chat.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Murray Miller. I'm with the address at 23698 Western Avenue. I represent the Laborers Union, potential jobs for members, potential jobs for apprentices, high school kids coming out of school. I don't want to go over a lot of things that a lot of people have said, but I think one thing that I was going to say this gentleman just talked about is it does give the land time to heal and the property owner the opportunity to bring more dollars into the community that may have not have come in. So I would say that with the new ordinance, if you put it into place to have it a date that it sets into the future and not affect the projects that are already in progress to be built. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom McCormick, 66488 Sycamore Road, North Liberty. First, want to thank the Area Plan Commission members that returned my phone calls past week and invite the others that did not return calls to give me a call. Neighbors, this is tough. This is a tough topic, and at the same time, what's going on here and what's in front of Area Plan, they're trying to do some of the right things with that at the same time. And, you know, applaud with what you're looking at. You know, APC 304424 was proposed text amendment for large-scale energy systems and ordinance. Both the federal government, state government are encouraging counties to be, quote, solar friendly through various incentive programs. However, each county, each community needs to decide if placing industrial solar arrays is the best for the property to be affected. The efforts to develop the 2,500 acres in North Liberty area, along to just finding out that there are options for solar between North Liberty and Walkerton, as well as North Liberty and Green Township, totaling an additional 4,000 acres. These developers are taking advantage of the current county ordinance as being friendly to solar development. Generally speaking, landowners do with their land what they want, including signing lease contracts. Others here will address concerns about impacts of solar fields on property value, loss of property rights, community aesthetics, wildlife, drainage. Big questions still remain to ultimate ownership of the solar energy leases, viability of these companies to follow through on solar operations, decommissioning of the solar fields at the end of the lease terms. What will be left behind as residuals in the soil following decommissioning? Will the land be able to be returned to crop production? These are important questions that need to be answered. I'm not sure that the proposed amendments to the ordinance address these questions sufficiently. A more logical approach would be to ask to pause these large-scale solar projects in the county and find answers. Then, after public comment, appropriate revisions can be incorporated into the updated comprehensive plan and the county ordinances guiding and governing SES, solar energy systems. I recommend that the area plan table APC 304424 with a strong recommendation to the county council to send the moratorium proposal with a 2-year minimum on large-scale solar projects back to the area plan commission for your consideration and recommendation for approval. I thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Commission, Abby and your staff. Thank you for all of your hard work. I know this has got to be gut-wrenching for you. I just have a few things to add.
Dan.
I'm sorry. I haven't done this enough.
Yeah.
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I think it would be wrong to tell anybody who is already working on a project, has started even the paperwork of a project, that they have to stop. That a moratorium, sorry guys, there's a moratorium, all this money, all this time you've invested already, it can't go forward, we got to stop. Case in point, similar to the Smith Concrete issue in New Carlisle, who had a prohibited product, but it was already in our IEC protected area, that their prohibited item that they did there, their batch plant, was already in the area. So they got grandfathered in. And I would suggest that you recognize, give the people who have started projects already a chance to notify you, put it officially in writing where the projects are being planned or are currently going, that you then say, whatever we decide here with this issue, whether we go to a moratorium, whatever, you can continue with your project. You can't stop a project in the middle, as they say. It's like bait and switch. You start a project and then say, nope, now you got to stop. Oh, wait a minute, you can start again. Well, now you got to stop. Once they've started, they've got to go through with it. I also suggest that a standard setback isn't probably a good thing. You've got areas where there are more houses than in other areas. I know this area in North Liberty, it's kind of scattered a little bit, and you're going to pick up houses here and there. So a standard setback there would probably be a good idea. But I went over to the LaPorte area to look at the area. I used to live in that area and look at the area where that project is going. This farmer A can plant soybeans, farmer B can plant corn, and those two would be the only people that see each other while they're working their fields. There are no houses around there. Why do you need a 150-foot setback while you're messing with your soybeans and the other guy's messing with his corn? Well, you got problems looking at solar panels rather than corn? I don't get it. I think it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. When a solar project is proposed, they come before you guys and the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask for the special use variance. But thank you for your excellent work.
Thank you, Dan.
Good afternoon. Jason Breeden, 69065 Primrose Road. I don't know if you'll take this as for or against the amendment. I believe that there are some good starts to the amendment, but overall, I think that a repeal of the ordinance altogether is more appropriate. So, you know, we believe that large-scale solar should be industrial zoned. I don't think there's anything about it that yells agriculture. Putting industrial solar or so-called solar farms in agricultural areas is no more acceptable than putting a hog barn in a subdivision and calling it residential pork production. It just doesn't make any sense. We don't need outside companies coming in trying to influence our local ordinances and laws. Councilman Dan Schatzel has a plan that I feel is some type of middle ground. It does require the public notifications, public hearings, and approvals that must be granted. It has minimum 500-foot setbacks. Buffering's required on all of it. No existing home should be surrounded by more than 2 sides, and a full bond would have to be there for all removal and cost. Training and equipment for the local fire departments would have to be paid for by the solar energy company. If we really want to know how the public feels, I believe you should put it to the people of the townships to vote on how they feel. That's the American way, isn't it? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Spencer England, 1415 South State Road 23. I am speaking in favor of this. Matter of fact, I'd like to favor a 1-mile setback. The reason I say that, some people would laugh. Sometimes I think when the government does things, they put the cart before the horse. We have a big initiative coming down where the federal government's telling us we're going to go this route with electric, or these solar farms, these solar fields. They tell people they started with solar on your house. Well, the gentleman who was here speaking about the solar on your house, there's an interesting point to that. They come there, they give you an estimate to put $40,000 or $50,000 worth of solar on your house. They want you to pay $200 or $300 a month, but you get to keep a couple $100 a month because you get residual, so we'll pay you back for that. So when you lay it out to them in a contract and you tell them, all right, well, I'll tell you what, give me all those panels for free and you can keep all the residual for the next 60 years. All of a sudden they turn around looking, well, we can't do that. It's like, okay, because you're selling something that's not really going to happen. So when the federal government offers $50,000 an acre subsidy to solar farms to come in and develop these areas, the first thing that local government wants to do is they want to grab that federal money without the thought process of how it's going to affect all those that are in these areas. The simple fact is, I will not talk about emotions. I'm not going to talk about how I feel. I'm going to talk about facts. The facts are Germany started renewable energy in 1991, these initiatives. Right now, as of today, 17.5% of all their power comes from solar and wind. As of October of 2023, they began to start up 4 natural gas plants and looking at nuclear reactors. Why was that? Because they couldn't produce enough power, not only because of what was happening in Russia, but their costs were going up through the roof. So I favor this, but I favor something greater. I favor taking subsidies away from these companies. And you know why they won't do it? Because they can't stand alone. Because solar cannot stand on its own. By 2029, solar says it's going to produce $339 billion in income for companies. It's interesting because even though they take 60% tax they take in money from the government at a rate of 60%. Oil companies take in income at about 15%. They create $4 trillion of income every year for the U.S. It's about payback, not about what sounds good at the minute. And my problem is, I don't want to see us have another plastic bag debacle. And when I say that, remember about 25 years ago, they said, do you want paper or plastic? And they got rid of that and they went to plastic. And now our oceans are full of plastic. Sometimes something that looks good on the front is not so good all the way through. You need to get a moratorium in. And if you say, well, we have an ordinance, we can't do that, and our attorneys tell us we can't do that, they're full of baloney. Because Marshall County had the same exact thing in 2019. They enacted a 2-year moratorium. It gives you an opportunity to really set things out and see if this is going to work for everybody. Thank you.
I'm just going to reiterate, before I'm going to pause real quick, I'm going to reiterate, I know there's a lot going on. This covers a lot of different things, a lot of different categories, but again, reminder, we are speaking on the modifications to the text amendment, okay? I know it's covers solar as a whole, but some of you sound like you're talking for it, but really aren't. So if you're speaking for it, please speak for it. If you're speaking, I mean, I'm hearing two different things, but please pertain it to what we are modifying to the text amendment, please.
Can I say something also? Am I allowed to say something here?
It would be against normal procedure, but the chairperson could allow it if he wants to.
Never mind, go ahead. I'll keep it for after.
Go ahead, sorry.
Hi, my name is Jacob Everett. I represent an organization called the Center for Infrastructure and Economic Development. We strive to help communities navigate these types of issues. We really try to be kind of a subject matter expert on local policy that guides how communities engage with renewable energy opportunities. I'll be brief. I just wanted to call out two items within the amendments that you have before you. Section.
Please provide your address for the record.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry. 849 Iron Bridge Road in Cicero, Indiana.
Thank you.
The main section 154515. There's some language in there that's a little bit conflicting, so just would encourage you from a technical perspective to potentially clean that up. In section C, item 1, says setbacks for ground-mounted SES shall be measured from the property line to the edge of the SES panel. Having that clarification that it's measured to the edge of the panel is really, really important. So there's no ambiguity about where we're starting and where we're ending measuring. The challenge, the conflicting language that you have with these amendments is the fact that C1 references the property line. If you continue on down to the section, number 3, the newly added language recognizes that when you're dealing with a non-participating property owner, it could be measured from the property line or the residence. So that's in conflict with the definition above. So I would really encourage you guys to clean that up so there's no ambiguity in that section. I think you guys know what you mean, but there's ambiguity there caused by the two definitions. Regarding the setbacks, the state guidelines were referenced earlier. Just to be clear, those guidelines suggest 50 feet, not 150, from the property line of a non-participating owner, and 250, which is what you have in your current amendments, to the wall of the residence. So just for clarification for everyone involved, the 250 is in line, the 150 is exceeding the state recommendations that were in Senate Bill 390 in 2023. Last kind of specific observation about the amendments, agrivoltaics was mentioned earlier. We're big proponents of supporting dual use when and where it makes sense. When the property owner wishes to use their property for more than one thing, we think that's a great thing for the landowner, for the community, and for the broader economy. We see this a lot. We see very kind of tight regulations around ground cover in the ordinance. We strongly suggest you consider moving that to a ground cover plan that's agreed to between the developer and the commissioners so that things like agrivoltaics can be incorporated. So if you're mandating very specific ground covers in the ordinance level, it kind of removes your flexibility from the community to work with the landowner. We do have lots of examples of folks growing things like mint and melons underneath the panels. We have examples of people doing things like grazing sheep around the panels. So by really constricting that ground cover, you're really eliminating the flexibility of your landowners to do different things. I don't think anybody would argue that dual use is a bad thing. It's a really good thing. We want to promote it. So we're very much in favor of having regulations around ground cover, but we think handling that in a separate agreement between the developer and the county in coordination with the landowners and your soil experts who are here in St. Joe County can create a lot more opportunities and create a lot more flexibility for the project. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Dan, address 1359 Short Drive, Knox, Indiana. And I am the Indiana Director for the Center for Energy Education, and our sole purpose is just to provide education to public officials, community leaders, the community at large. We are here at your service if we're ever needed. But just a couple of quick points around renewables. So currently, 16% of Indiana's electricity supply is imported from other states. And with the number of data centers and large power users throughout the state coming on board soon, that number will increase exponentially over the next several years if we don't invest in ourselves through renewable energy opportunities in our communities. We know that utilities are becoming less reliant on fossil fuels, and as they continue to diversify their utility mix and reduce their carbon footprint, it is imperative that we become self-reliant through these renewable opportunities. Landowners' rights, it's a landowner's choice, and farmers, they have a right to diversify, and there are ways that it can all be worked out with the neighbors, farming the sun. And I know that, modifying the ordinance to make it a special use, I understand, but farming the sun is very similar to farming crops. So, you can argue that point either way. But definitely for landowners' rights, right now it's pretty dry out there. And some of our farmers, who knows what that might look like for their crops this year. And they should be allowed to have a say on what happens with their land. So just a couple of points. I was in economic development for 18 years. I did work very closely with some developers in Stark County, and the first phase of the Mammoth project is getting ready to be commissioned shortly. That, if the entire project is completed in Pulaski County, will cover 13,000 plus acres. And, there are 2 other projects in Stark County, just as an example. So just wanted everybody to be aware. And one more quick point, White County. White County is very renewable friendly as far as wind and solar. Indiana Beach, a huge old Indiana icon that's been there for generations, was for sale and could not find a buyer. So they were able to take some of the money from their renewable energy projects and provide a very large incentive to a buyer. And now Indiana Beach is thriving again. They are employing lots of folks from their local community, and just wanted to throw out a few of the economic benefits that these projects can provide. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lisa.
Jason Breeden, 10690 Fairview Avenue. To start, I want to thank you guys for your time today. I'm not speaking necessarily in favor or opposed to this. I think it's a good start. However, I just want to make a few points that I think everyone needs to be aware of. To begin, I'm a lifelong resident of St. Joe County. I didn't get here by taking a plane from Virginia. I didn't drive up here from Carmel. I'm here because I directly live here, and my family directly lives on the property that would be impacted specifically by the Dumont substation. Transparency has been talked about a lot today. And to me, transparency in modern day is pretty simple. If it's visible in the newspaper, to me, that's transparency. If you can Google search it and get plenty of information, to me, that's transparency. If it's on Facebook, social media, that to me is transparency. That has not been what has taken place with the Dumont substation project. The reason why you've had, you could say, an uproar or a big stir lately is because people feel it's been deceiving, and truthfully, the people that live in Liberty Towns specifically were not in the loop on this project. And I just want to remind you, we're talking late 2019, 2020, when a lot of these ordinances were established and these guidelines were put in place. COVID-19 took place in 2020. So there's a lot bigger issues and things going on than necessarily public transparency and discussion when these guidelines were put in place. And I understand the construction argument. You know, people are arguing you can't stop construction that's already in place. But if we recall, we shut down this country for weeks, months because of COVID. So we've proven in the past that things like this, with the pandemic, there needs to be plenty of time for discussion and revision to do what's right for the people that live in this land area. If this was such a great thing, why didn't they just have a meeting where the whole community was brought in, they offer what they can offer the community, and if it's such a great thing, everyone would have been behind it? I think the answer is pretty simple. It was done how it was done because they know that the people that primarily live there, their home, their residents, are not going to be positively impacted by this. I want to make clear, I'm not totally against solar. If it's wide open areas along highways where there's no homes impacted, I'm all for it. But when you're impacting people's homes, people's livelihood, that's when things really change. I think if you survey the people in this room, the majority against this actually take home and live in their residences in Liberty Township. I think the people that are in favor, the majority of them, don't live there. They live in Carmel, they live in Cicero. They don't actually spend their lives daily on that property. What you have here is a get-rich-quick scheme where properties are going to be ruined for those that live there, and those that do not live there are going to benefit off the loss of others. You know, we're talking about being good neighbors here. My family's owned property in North Liberty for 20 years, lifelong residents there. They were not notified by any of the 3 property owners around them of potentially this project coming in place. That is not transparency. That is not being a good neighbor.
Sir, I'm going to stop you. You haven't said one thing about what's going on with this text amendment. And you spent 3.5, almost 4 minutes talking about this specific project.
Fair enough, I'll wrap it up.
If you're going to talk about it, please bring up something with this specific text amendment.
I'll wrap it up. The last thing I'll say is, I feel it's only right if people like me have their voice heard. If a company like Hexagon can come here, speak first and make their point, I think it's only fair that you listen to the people. Again, it's the American way. Thank you.
Christopher Huff, 1831 College Street, South Bend. Pretty much a lifelong resident of all corners of St. Joseph County. I'd like to support the proposal before you this afternoon. It's a step in the right direction, and this is what should have occurred almost 5 years ago now. The Area Plan Commission staff, the Area Plan Commission then, the County Council then, and the County Commissioners then should have taken a much more proactive and a far longer range vantage and viewpoint of these projects. Now, I used to be the Director of City Planning in Mishawaka, c'est la vie. When we were developing, or as Grape Road and Main Street was developing, there's 2 square miles of property that was being developed over a 40-year period, and it caused a lot of controversy and a lot of concern of the residents in St. Joseph County. Now, I'm not here to speak about the proposal that's down in Liberty Township specifically. However, just to put it in perspective, 2 square miles around Grape Road, which has added billions of dollars of local economic oomph, in comparison with 4 square miles of proposed solar industrial complex in Liberty Township. And this is not about the farmers. God love them for what they have to deal with. This is about the developers, 4 square miles of solar industry down there. So Grape Road and North Main Street, Mishawaka, is half the size of just the proposal of this one particular project, which is allowed by right at the moment. This should have never, ever been allowed to progress to this point without governors being placed on the ordinances. Now, what's driving all this? Obviously, it's the 30% federal income tax credits, not deductions, but credits. And every farmer out here knows exactly what I'm talking about. ITCs versus deductions. The 30% income tax credits will not go to the property owners. It will go to the owners of the solar panels and the facilities on their property. Farmers and the property owners will get a percentage of that back. That's the enticement, the economic enticement. So I'm going to go back to the basics. Yes, this should be approved, and it should have been approved 5 years ago. 2, when it comes to special use permits, as I've dealt with for 35 years, or did deal with for 35 years, special use permits plus reasonable restrictions can be put onto projects such as this, just as they are with nuclear power plants and with landfills and recycling facilities, et cetera. So I really want St. Joseph County government to get up to speed with some of these extraordinary projects, which have amazing impacts on the local community. 4 square miles just in this one, 2 square miles in the 2 that have already been built. That's half the size of the entire area of Mishawaka City. Okay, so you see what you're dealing with here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Chris Mathis, 27501 Harrison Road. I'm a sports official, Mr. Devon, so I understand your challenge of deciding when to cut people off and when not to cut people off. I know you want to let people speak, and a lot of what was said had nothing to do with the amendment up here. But I do want to speak to the amendment specifically. There's a lot of components to it. Number one, it should be sent along. There's one thing, the required third-party review of pollinator seed mix. In the actual proposal, there's the caveat when deemed necessary by zoning administrator. I think that should be an annual review by a third party. You have a soil and water conservation district here in St. Joseph County that would be able to provide that sort of technical assistance. I know they do that for the landfill on an annual basis as required by law as well. So to make that more clear, because as you heard, you'll hear a lot of promises about agrivoltaics and pollinators and sheep grazing and all the good stuff that can go on underneath solar panels. That's the reason that the permitting process really needs to be stringent and very, very transparent to make sure that all the promises that are made about how environmental this is going to be are actually put in place. Because having driven by to Honeysuckle Project today, all I really saw was a bunch of annual cereal grasses out there. I haven't seen where the pollinators are, but BP said that they were out there. Solar is absolutely a special use at minimum. I would suggest that it's far more of an industrial use. And when it comes to tax revenues for the county is leaving millions of dollars on the table by not zoning it industrial, as it actually is. So if we're going to take in all of the various revenues that are promised by the developers of these projects, then we should be upfront and zone it as it is, which is industrial. And then once all of the removal takes place, it can certainly be rezoned agricultural once it goes back to that use. So like I said, overall, I would say I'm in favor of the amendment with the following small caveats to be adjusted to it. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you.
Jameson Brown, 28121 Quincy Road, North Liberty. First of all, I'd like to say I support the amendment. I think it's a great start. I think there could be some more done, but I think it's a great start. My concern is environmental. I'm not against solar. In fact, there's my company where I work, I don't own it, I just work there, has solar on the roof, 0.5 megawatt, and several other buildings out on the west side of South Bend even have up to 1 megawatt on the roof. So I'm a full supporter of it. I just think we need to be smart the way we do it. Rooftop doesn't use up any farmland, and it has very little to no environmental impact. However, looking back at some of the information that I found, in 2022, the EPA fined 4 solar farms in Illinois, Alabama, and Idaho due to runoff of contaminated water because of soil runoff. So that was multi-million-dollar fines because there were not pollinators and things set up for that. So I think we need to look at adding that into the bill, in my opinion. Also is the smart use of farmland. That's my real big question. 2,500 acres to produce 150 megawatts. Where right now the new St. Joe County Energy Center in New Carlisle, the power plant out there, natural gas, is 165 acres and produces 1,425 megawatts, substantially larger. The gas turbines are SGT 5000Fs with a 99.2% reliability. So where solar, I've heard in the teens, especially in northern Indiana. Some of the other concerns are, I'm hearing property rights. I'm a firm believer in everyone should have their property rights, but I believe this is industrial. That's just my opinion, especially when some of the developers and property owners are not local. This is directly impacting local people in North Liberty, St. Joe County, and future projects. That's also another concern. And it's not just a square like we see out in New Carlisle. It's all over Liberty Township. Also health. We're running additional power lines because it's spread out. We don't know what the EMF radiation coming off the transformers are. There's no numbers out there. I've tried to look them up. I love numbers. I haven't found it yet. The life of the panels varies. So I believe that as part of this, I think we need to do a moratorium. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your effort. Understand the position you're in.
Oh, Sarah, I can get it. Yeah. Are you trying?
I appreciate it. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Kuchme. I'm an attorney with Snyder, Morgan, and Kuchme. The address is 4211 Clubview Drive in Fort Wayne. I represent quite a few of the households here in the county, and I've been asked to discuss several important topics with respect to the proposed amendments to your county's solar ordinance. And I want to confirm, our opinion. It's kind of a mixed bag position, right? Some of the proposed changes we think are a good idea, others we don't like, and others we believe just simply don't go, far enough, and we need more. I've been told I can only speak today for 5 minutes, so I kind of typed up my comments. I'm going to have other people just kind of read where I leave off, because I do have a lot of information that I'd like to share with you. Just by way of background, I've been heavily involved in solar issues for the past several years in over 22 counties in Indiana. I've been involved in all manner of litigation involving solar issues, involving revisions to ordinances, tax abatement proceedings, special exception proceedings. I've been in front of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission and so on. So I've seen a lot of ordinances. I've heard a lot of arguments. I've seen what this industrial solar can do to a community, not the least of which is going to be division among the residents, a loss of jobs, and the removal of many thousands of acres of productive farmland. As you'll see, once one of these projects gets approved, then comes phase 2, then comes phase 3, and then comes the next company, followed by others.
At last count, Pulaski County, where I've been very heavily involved in, they've got, I think, about 25,000 acres of farmland under contract with solar. So just one of these projects alone, it'll utilize thousands of acres of land, hundreds of thousands of giant panels. You got the substations, the cables, the inverters, and everything else that goes into this. I mean, these are industrial utility plants. They'll change the face of your county long-term, so it's very important to get it right. So again, you're not saying no to solar, but let's get the proper regulations in place so solar can be done right. Be responsible, protect the county, protect the residents in the county, and protect the non-participating property owners. So the proposed revisions that are before you today, are they better than the existing regulations? Yes, they are. But they fall significantly short of what is necessary. Certainly the change from a permitted use to a special use in the ag district, that's important. I mean, you need to have a public hearing on these projects. You need to have public input so you can address each specific application and impose conditions that are applicable to that specific proposal. The proposed changes contemplate setbacks of 250 feet from a residence and 150 feet from a property line, as will be discussed. Again, while better than the existing setbacks, they're incredibly deficient. And they would leave at least one home that I know of completely surrounded by solar based on the intentions of a current developer. So, and even the proposed landscaping requirements need work. For example, there's no screening requirements if a property is not, if the solar development is not adjacent to a subdivision, despite the impact on that property's view and their property values. Obviously, just those living in subdivisions are not the only ones that could be hurt by these developments. Over the last several years, I've gathered and I've learned a lot of information on some of the downsides of these industrial solar projects. Studies show that commercial solar utilities will negatively impact neighboring property values. That effect is generally seen from about 3 miles out, and then, as you get closer and the larger the project is, the impact is more significant. The Pulaski County Board of Zoning Appeals, when they were actually considering a special exception for a solar project, they made a finding that it was undeniable and unavoidable that a significant number of the 220 homes within a mile of the proposed site would see a decrease in property values. There's a portion of a Court of Appeals decision referencing that finding in tab 1 of the binder that I put in front of you. Tab 2 contains a licensed appraiser's summary of many peer-reviewed articles confirming the negative impact on neighboring property values. And this is important because Indiana statute requires that you give regard to conservation of property values when you're amending an ordinance.
Sir, you have 30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. I've spoken to local Indiana brokers who confirm the obvious. People do not want to live near these projects. Sales have been lost, offers have been pulled, offers are not made, canceled viewings. The market basically dries up. I've seen solar companies try to argue the contrary, that there's no harm. I've even heard some say values go up. But when you look at the numbers, you got to look carefully what they're saying. Some of these sales were where the solar company themselves bought the property. Normal folks don't want to live anywhere near these. In tab 3 of your binder, I've included statements from several of those Indiana brokers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who goes next?
Havilah Elia, 27520 Quinn Road, North Liberty, Indiana. Also, when you put these solar utilities in agricultural districts, they destroy the rural character and take important farmland out of operation. Adequate farmland is critical to our nation's food supply and is a national security interest. And these solar utilities eat up vast amounts of land that cannot be disputed. And they increase runoff. They result in soil loss. And I am told it can take generations to recover fertility, if ever. It is not simply the case of pulling the panels out in 30 years and pretending like the project never happened. It is also important to note that these developments don't really benefit local communities as often suggested. Electricity is sold to the grid and sent off to who knows where. It does not necessarily stay local. And solar companies own expert in cases I have been involved with admit their projects will result in loss of jobs in the counties where located. Once up and running, you don't even need one hand to count the new jobs associated with that utility. And on the other side of the equation, taking larger amounts of farmland out of operation results in significant job loss, among other things, and those job losses far exceed any jobs created. You have less sales, less seed, less fuel, less labor, and less taxes, etc. These losses are significant to a community and far outweigh the perceived benefit. Tab 4 is a report done by a Michigan State University professor on a proposed project in Indiana, and an analysis of the report by a North Carolina University professor finding the negative impacts on local economy to be staggering. With all of the concerns surrounding solar utilities, what do I see other counties doing? One way to offer protection is to limit where these can go. Excluding,
Ma'am, I'm going to stop you.
yes, sir?
I know you're explaining what's in this book, but again, we need to have this pertaining to what text amendments we have in front of us. What are we, whether you're for or against these text amendment changes, not whether you're for or against solar as a whole or not.
And if you can just indulge her a little bit, it does all.
I already have it for about
It does tie.
3.5 minutes, so please.
Thank you for your patience, sir. It does tie in. I appreciate it. Excluding use of prime ag land, for example, something my clients would definitely like to see. Or putting limits on the number of acres of farmland that can ultimately be utilized in the county. While one project may only represent a small percentage, the total number will quickly add up. Tab 5 is an excerpt from Madison County's solar ordinance, including a cap on prime farmland at 10%. Some counties require a detailed fire safety plan. This is something that is very important and should be expanded on in your proposed ordinance. Can equipment get inside? Do they have room to maneuver? How will responders be trained? Do they even have the right equipment? Will the solar company provide the equipment? They should. Utility solar fires are not normal fires. Statements have been made that all fire personnel in the county have received information and training for solar. That is not true. Tab 6 is a letter from Chief Littoral of the Liberty Green Fire Territory dated June 3rd of 2024, confirming they have not received any information or training for solar panels or battery fires, and they have not been contacted by any solar companies. I have seen many counties impose
Again,
property value.
Ma'am, none of this is relevant to the text amendment changes we are asking for up to date, so.
When we start getting into some of the fire safety issues, that does relate to the setbacks and how far these things need to be away
Right.
from the residences.
But you got 30 seconds left, and you haven't touched on anything that's in the 3 items.
I've seen many counties impose property value guarantees in their solar ordinance to protect non-participating properties. That is something my clients would like to also see. I've discussed the negative impacts on proper values, and a proceeding I had in another county underscores the need for this. There, a BZA was deliberating imposing a property value guarantee as a condition of approval.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Jennifer Jean, 69195 Oak Road, Lakeville. The solar company interrupted the deliberations and threatened to sue if that condition was imposed. When questioned why it would be even an issue after the solar company spent all night arguing there would be not a negative impact.
I'm going to stop you right now. I see what you guys are doing. Please pertain this to the text amendment changes we're doing. We're asking to make or not make.
Yes, and you are allowed to make changes.
And you've already talked, sir. You've already had your 5 minutes.
Imposing insurance requirements. Tab 7 includes pictures of the solar project in Stark County, where they brought in heavy equipment and literally removed all topsoil. That is all value of farmland. Removal of the topsoil destroys the farmland and ability to return to farming, not to mention flooding problems it creates. Some ordinances in Indiana require land to be returned to the condition before the solar project. Some require soil testing before throughout the project. We are in favor of these solar panels. That is not what we're trying to be against. These are all important things my clients would like to see, if not outright banned on agricultural land. Decommissioning plans are also very important to counties. Chances are the solar company that receives approval will not be the company operating 20 to 30 years down the road at the end of the project's life. Who will be left holding the bag? Hopefully not the county. My clients would like to see reasonable restrictions and transfer of ownership of solar development. Also, the ordinance currently requires a bond or financial assurance to cover 125% of the estimated cost of decommissioning. Obviously, the numbers utilized is anyone's guess. The actual number would be much higher. The county should consider a bond of 150% or 200% of the estimated cost. I would think St. Joseph County wants to be sure it is protected and should be evaluated every 3 to 5 years. Again, the life of these projects are approximately 30 years, and numbers change. Another important subject that needs to be in ordinance are provisions for wildlife corridors. The fences associated with solar projects cannot impede natural wildlife. With so much more to address, my client's final request is that you vote to either ban these projects from the agricultural district altogether or approve the proposed change for permitted use to special exception. Vote to increase setbacks by at least 4 times that which is being proposed. Add property value guarantees, add provisions for wildlife corridors, approve the other proposed changes to the county at least that has place, and then to vote to start the process to impose a moratorium on the acceptance of commercial solar applications and also battery storage systems, which such time as all other issues can be considered and proper ordinance put in place. As I noted, more is needed. Moratoriums are something many counties do to maintain the status quo until thorough changes can be deliberated and decided. By way of example, Kosciuszko, Marshall, Madison, Delaware, Rush, and Fayette counties.
Ma'am, again, this is not pertaining to our text amendment.
Among others, have enacted moratoriums to provide protections while ordinances were changed.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to stop you. Your time is up. I am going to pause right now. I'm going to clarify something real quick. Our board and our commission, we are not allowed to amend the ordinance that is in front of us, the text amendments that are in front of us. All we are allowed to do is approve or deny or table. We cannot make changes to what is in front of us currently.
You mean to send favorably or not?
Correct, to send favorably to the county council. Our commission cannot make those changes. All we're doing is make a recommendation for or against. Okay, just to clarify, for those of you that are trying to say, please modify, because we cannot do that. So if there's anybody else we can speak in favor of this petition, please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Garrett, and my address is 24913 Stanton Road, North Liberty. And I'll be quick. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for hearing everyone today. I appreciate it. As far as the favorable or not favorable, I guess I would be in favor because it seems a little bit better than maybe what we had originally. Obviously, there's a lot of people with more ideas, which, maybe would happen on down the road. But I guess One of the main things that I would be concerned with, especially, is the pollinator seed mix, screenings and all of that. We built our house on our property 20 years ago. It's our dream home. We love it. Our daughter has property behind us that we'll be building within the next few years. A lot of the property around her is a possibility of having solar panels on it, which totally changes her idea of living in St. Joe County. So we love the environment. We love the sun and think it's a great idea to try to harvest that energy. And using the pollinator seed mix, I have a huge garden of my own that I try to encourage pollination. We plant trees on our property, but I think that there's a place for it. The big honeysuckle plant is a massive acreage of land with no houses. This is just totally different. And I do want to stick to the amendment here. So I would say, yes, I'm in favor of it. I hate conflict. I hate that everyone is here today in conflict with each other. I hope that we can come to a resolution where everyone is happy. I know that's probably not possible, but I do know that some people have mentioned trying to change the rules once a game is started. I think that really only comes into play and really applies when both teams are aware of the rules at the beginning, and I don't think that was the case with this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Jean, 69195 Oak Road, Lakeville. The setbacks are almost laughable. We've had a lot of community support regarding much stricter setbacks. For example, 500-foot setbacks from the property line, 8-foot tall berm, 3 rows of spruce trees, and the ground cover as well. Many of these locations, and I've had several councilmen out to visit me at my property, when we leave our driveway, the neighboring property is uphill. So even if there was an 8-foot tall berm in my personal location, it wouldn't help anything. It would be very minimal. As I said, I've had many representatives out, and every one of them, even if they're die hard for the program, every one of them has admitted to me that they see the issue, and that we're not the honeysuckle. We are entirely different. Everyone has probably seen the photo that's used for honeysuckle, the aerial photo that's showed in the media. I know there's 2 of you up here on the board now that intimately know the North Liberty area. So anybody who doesn't, I encourage you to come down and take a drive. You'll see it is nothing like honeysuckle at all. It cannot be treated the same way. That's it. Thank you.
So are you for? Because
I'm for, but not with the way the requirement, not the way the setbacks are. I think they need to be improved, strengthened. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Donna Michelin. Address is 24803 Stanton Road. I'm what you would call a transplant to North Liberty. I moved there about 20 years ago out of South Bend. Wanted to have a better life for my children, myself. We wanted to move out to the country. We have an old homestead home, 20 acres around us. I can't imagine. We have a 200-foot barn, so I do have a pretty good comparison of what 150 feet around us would look like to have solar panels. Good change from 75 foot, but still not great. If I had only 150 feet surrounding me, which is what you're going to be okaying for some of these properties. Some of my neighbors, that's what it's going to look like. They've saved so that they could move out there and live. I am not against solar. I think it's not the right place in St. Joe County. Again, we're a small farming community. That's why I moved out there. It's a small community. Friends, neighbors. If you have a farm and you're not farming it and you live in Carmel, sell your farm. My God, get out of there. If it's because you're keeping it because of family
Ma'am,
name.
could you please speak into the mic for the record?
Sorry,
Yeah,
if you are keeping it because of family obligations, get out of the community. But again, solar farms should not be in North Liberty. Again, the 75-foot, that's not good. The 175 or 150 foot is a good start. I think you guys need to re-examine it and give the moratorium a little time so that everybody can look at it. Mr. Matthews, the chairperson who actually walked away from it, he's probably the only person that should be voting on it because he knows the area and lives in it. When you're talking about the 4 evergreens in the whatever footage, you also never talked about the chain link fencing. I've never seen a solar farm that doesn't have chain link fencing around it. So you've got chain link fencing with your evergreens around it. Love the evergreens. You're still gonna see chain link fencing though. Potato Creek is something that we have invested in for years and years and years. You're still gonna see chain link fencing through your evergreens. So something that we also need to think about when you're doing this. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
People don't know.
Maybe we should.
Check, just want to make sure I'm coming
Excuse me
through.
one second, ma'am. Excuse me one second.
My name is Marcia
Ma'am.
Vargo.
Ma'am.
I live at,
Ma'am, just one moment.
One second,
Yeah,
sorry.
just
I'm gonna
one
pause you
moment.
real
We'll
quick.
get to you in a moment.
Go ahead.
Adam, I was just going to say, maybe we should clarify that we are still in favor, and we will take public comment for opposed.
Yes.
I'm going to bow out. I'm against.
Okay, yep. Yeah, we're still in favor of this, these changes.
Wow, I came here thinking that this was gonna be a simple issue. John Jaworski, I live in North Liberty,
Your address too, please.
62-100 Redwood Road. And it's just fascinating to hear all these viewpoints. I guess a lot of people consider solar energy to be an answer to prayers. And I'm not a religious person, but I hearken back to a statement made by a Spanish saint in 1500s, Saint Teresa of Avila in Spain. She said, "More tears are shed over answered prayers than over unanswered ones." And on the face of it, it seems like it's antithetical, but it's true when you think about it. That's all I have.
Sorry about that. Good evening. My name's Jordan Burke, 321 East Main Street, Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm with a company called Hexagon Energy, and I want to speak in favor of much of this amendment. So, like some, I have a few reservations that I'd like to express to you all, but in general, just very much commend Abby Wiles and the rest of the planning staff and the Area Plan Commission for the great work they've done proposing reasonable regulation on solar facility development in St. Joseph County. I'd like to just talk about a few things because in the text amendment that I think are really good first. The first one is the decommissioning bond. Raising that amount is extremely important. There are a lot of people in this room who've already expressed concern that there's not going to be money to take these projects out at the end of their life cycle. One of the ways of guaranteeing that is having a bond in place to do that. 100% of the cost of decommissioning seems eminently fair. Also acknowledging that salvage value is involved, I think is important too, because a lot of people forget that, these are driven piles, no poured concrete in the soil, but they're steel, And these racks of panels can be taken out, and they're incredibly valuable. They can be resold to facilities that want to recycle steel. There are also recycling facilities all over the United States that are being built to recycle these panels. That's being built out as we experience more demand for facilities capable of removing large-scale solar facilities. So, a very important amendment. I think this review of the pollinator seed mix is also really important. You don't want to plant something that's going to run wild here. One of the benefits of having a solar facility in a county like St. Joseph County, a lot of mention has been made of a project that my company has worked on south of Potato Creek State Park, is that solar facilities have native grasses that are being planted, and we need to have experts vetting the seed mixes. It can be pasture land for sheep. You're talking about a couple thousand acres potentially of new pasture land for sheep, but if it's not, and if the ground sits and rests with no pesticides sprayed on it, then we need to make sure that we're not planting stuff that's going to run over into other people's properties and stuff that's going to be well tended and well taken care of in the neighborhood. I think the great thing about native grass, and I think a lot of you all already know this, is that it's got really deep root systems. It improves water retention. It actually prevents runoff. You can go around and see CRP ground all over the state of Indiana that demonstrates that bears that out. So you see actually the prevention of erosion when these seed mixes are planted and planted well, and so county oversight in that is crucial. So I think removing paved drives is a absolute no-brainer, a very good amendment as well. I wanted to talk about these additional setback restrictions. First, to say that I don't want to speak about our project. I know it's in an area with houses abutting farmland, and that's going to create tension. It already does create tension between farmers and homeowners, and I respect that. But I did hear mention made of our intentions for a project like the one that we're developing south of Potato Creek State Park. It's always been our intention to set back several hundred feet from houses. The current proposal to set back 250 feet is reasonable, and so that's almost a football field setback from a home. Property values, according to many national studies, will not be impacted significantly by setbacks like that and appropriate screens. I ask you to consider not restricting the rights to develop this land for solar. Our landowners spent a lot of time talking about that with us, and ask that you respect their decision to work with us and consider not passing the special use permit proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Hi, guys. My name's Amanda Mitchell. My address is 27205 Riley Road. Long night, right? I really appreciate you guys listening to each and every one of us. It's obviously that a lot of us don't feel heard, and you guys are taking a place which should have taken place a long time ago before this had passed. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm not going to rehash, you guys, it's a favorable recommendation. This is where I'd like to see is this, but with the understanding that we want more, and we have a lot of other things to address with this issue. One of the things that was just said is that the setbacks wouldn't impact anybody, but we're here to say, yeah, it will. And that's when we talk about all this, it's diminishing our concerns as the people that are living in the community. It is much easier to say when I live a couple blocks away, or if I live when this is in your backyard, yeah, it's gonna impact you. So we're hoping that, and what it sounds like is we're gonna get a chance to have a moratorium and have this addressed in the city council, right? Or the county council. But I am confused because when I was going back through, so give the history of this bill, and it was about the Soul Smart and a lot about the Department of Energy. But one thing that was failed to miss is that it was the Area Plan Commission that had originated the ordinance. So can we have that done tonight? Can you guys start an ordinance so we can get a moratorium in place? Because you guys have done it before. Or no, this is not how it works. Let me read. It says an ordinance initiated by the Area Plan Commission of St. Joseph County amending chapter 154. Do you want me to go on? I'm just saying that from here, it sounds like you guys do have that ability to change some stuff. Can you guys do that? Like, I'm actually asking. No.
We can't answer questions in the middle of.
Okay. Well, then I'll go on to say some of this stuff. When the history actually of this bill was talked again about the Soul Smart part, but one of the things that was brought up also was that it would alleviate and minimize the loss of agricultural land, that it would preserve and protect our natural environment, and conserve open space, and protect natural and scenic resources. And we all know that this is not where we've landed. Now we're talking about cover-up, we're talking about people's properties. This didn't preserve our natural resources or our scenic or open spaces, and it's not helping us with our property values. So again, I speak in favor for this with the hopes that we will be able to add additional amendments later down the line to protect us. Utilities should not be on agricultural land, it's industrial. And so that was one of the concerns a lot of people had with, if we amend it, are we saying that we agree with the fact that we have it as industry, as agricultural use, and that's not something we should. So I thank you for your time, really, sincerely. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're still taking comments.
Are you,
in
are you
favor.
against? We're still in favor. Is there anybody else present in favor of these text amendment changes? Please come forward. Is there anybody in auxiliary that is for these text amendment changes that is present? I can't see how many people are out there. I don't know if,
Doesn't look like it.
no. Okay, see none. We will now go online. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of these text amendment changes? Please use your raise hand feature. I think Mary had her hand up for a while. Mary, go
Okay,
ahead.
Mary.
Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I urge you to vote yes or favorably to this amendment. This ordinance, it is a start. It's a very good start. I think I'm a little unorganized here. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak, but I feel like I have to. Speaking for the zoning setback, the ones that were not in favor of and thought it was too strict are the ones that don't even live there. So I think that ought to be taken with a grain of salt, that those are the ones that it's not in their neighborhood. They don't even live. A couple of them didn't even live in the state, if I heard correctly. I would prefer to see a farm building or a structure rather than solar. It's ugly. And the closer it is to a home, the property, the more it is nearby a property owner, the lower the homeowner's value will drop. So yes, setbacks are important. The only ones I think that spoke against a further setback are in the business, if I heard correctly. This is a very good start, as Mrs. Drake and Mr. Thomas stated. And Mr. Thomas talked about the proper setbacks. I agree. And if these solar projects are moving forward on a large scale industrial solar, there definitely needs to be at least a 250-foot and proper screening. I'm concerned about the decommissioning cost, as cost of everything is drastically rising. I cannot imagine how high the cost will be in 30 years or 40 years or whenever they're going to be decommissioned. So the stricter, the higher, the better. I agree with those. The decommissioning bonds are a big requirement, and the higher, the better, I believe. The bottom line is, if these large scale industrial size solar panels were next to your home, please imagine the hundreds of thousands of solar panels next to your home, adjacent to your property. As so many solar industrial panels fill thousands of fields across Indiana at such an alarming rate, citizens have been overwhelmed as they try to research pros and cons while they listen and learn to others who have had this industrial sized solar forced upon them, and they lower their property values. So please don't lower their property values anymore, and please enforce those strict or higher setbacks, please. People live and continue to live where they do because of the area of what is in the area or near the area, and I'm sure those pretty fields, farm fields, were much nicer to look at than what solar fields would look like. It was mentioned about the overhead tension and power lines, how they can cause problems for farmers. I understand that, and I do know they lower property values. So will these solar panels. So again, the further setbacks, the better. Homeowners invested in their homes, and they have property rights as well. And the setback amendments are, the further the better. I would rather see greater setbacks, but this is a great start. So thank you for that. And I've heard about changing the rules in the middle of the game. Changing the rules is exactly what's happening to property owners adjacent to or near industrial solar. A drastic change is happening near their homes. This is a change of the rules for them, for their homes. I mean, I can only imagine it would be a shock of having you go from green fields and farm fields and those pleasant sceneries and animals and wildlife, and now you've got solar. It's a change for them. Please move forward and vote yes on this moratorium. I do agree with minimum setbacks, bonds, public notification is crucial. A small sign barely noticeable isn't adequate notice, nor is a legal notice in newspapers, for the most part, that don't exist anymore, sadly. This is a good start. The amendments are needed. If the amendments and moratorium to solar developers is not acceptable, St. Joe County
30
could always
seconds,
do
Mary.
like, they could always do like Fort Wayne in Huntington County area and put a complete pause and stop on industrial solar. I don't think it's changing the rules. I think we're learning as we go. And it's kind of like if your doctor diagnoses you with something and you try a treatment plan, and if it doesn't work and you learn something new, you change it as you go. It's for the better. It's a learning process, and revisions are needed, as well as even more changes. This is our community. If the rules need to change to protect our
Your time is
community,
now up, Mary.
then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fig.
I think you said my name. I'm sorry, I didn't
Go ahead,
hear it.
Randy.
Okay. I'm Councilman Randy Figg. My office is on the 4th floor, County City Building. My home address is 60822 Greenridge Court, South Bend, Indiana 46614. I'm speaking in favor of this solar tax amendment, and I am asking the Area Plan Commission to vote favorably for this and pass it on to us in the County Council. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have a Brian Tanner. Please state your name and address.
Councilman Brian Tanner, District H, St. Joseph County Council, 525 Calhoun Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Thank you for the time and the consideration. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I know this is an impassioned and confusing time for many of you, and I don't blame you for the way that you feel about those conditions, for the pace in which you perceive this to have progressed. But one thing that I want to be clear about in my support of what's proposed today is that these text amendments provide greater protections than exist today. They may not be perfect. They may not ever be perfect by everybody's definition. But if Hexagon Solar, BP Light, anybody else broke ground today, these protections are not in place. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's where we stand today. So any extra protection to neighboring residents is a reasonable consideration that I think a lot of thought was put forth by the area plan staff in finding what was a trend across the state and put us in a competitive place as a community. And most importantly, with the special use, whether it's an existing project that's been under development and how we handle that, or future projects, it gives us the opportunity for it to go through the appropriate process where area plan can consider these projects and the county council can consider these projects. And that these new text amendments at least establish a baseline for what those considerations are. A baseline which is pretty limited today. And we have the ability, whether we use it or not, or a project dictates the needs or not, to author additional written commitments as they relate to a project. So I applaud the area plan staff for the work that you've done. I appreciate, as a member of the county council and a representative of the community, the opportunity for us to have a say in future projects. And I hope that you forward this to us with a favorable recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Looks like Stephen Whitmer.
Good evening. Stephen Whitmer, 56745 Eastview Drive, Osceola, Indiana, 46561. Regarding the solar text amendment, I support our county council members, Councilwoman Drake and Councilman Thomas, and believe they are on the right track. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Could you scroll down?
Yep, there you go.
Huh?
I'm sorry, I missed the last call to speak in favor, if I could. If you allow me, I'd appreciate that.
Let me see if there's anybody else here real quick on Zoom. Do you see anybody? No? Go ahead, Mr. Schatzel.
Dan Schatzel, County Councilman for the district that includes Granger District C. I took a tour of Liberty Township, and I'm very familiar with it. My sister lives there. And I walked away thinking what Mr. Huff said here. We should have probably had some pretty significant rules in place 5 years ago, but we didn't. I liked what Mr. England said, that solar companies today probably don't survive without the federal subsidies and the tax breaks that they get from local governments. And so that kind of changes the equation for me. I believe in individual liberty and the right to do what you will with your property, but when we're already circumventing the rules that we have lived by as Americans in the economic equation, I think that allows us to look at things a little differently. I like some of the things you've done here. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said special use permit. I think that violates the separation of powers. But then I took another tour of the IEC area, and I realized something. If we look at our county, if we start from Granger proper, go across through Mishawaka, South Bend, we go across 20 to New Carlisle, it's very, very urban, right? We go down to North Liberty. It's very, very different. It's a different community. And I don't think we can treat industrial solar like one size fits all. So I like some of the things you've done here. I would like to see, I think the special use permit Now I'm in favor of that. I think that's a great idea. If we have a special use permit and we can, as a council, can look at each individual project, and we can look at something like in a community like North Liberty and say, you know what, it doesn't fit, we're gonna say no, then we don't have to have 500-foot setbacks for a project in the IEC. So if we can get the special use permit and the council will have the ability to say, this does not fit in this community, no, this fits in this community, yes, then the setbacks you have here, I think, are satisfactory. I think the buffering is very important. The bond requirement. Let's make sure that any solar field that goes in, that we make sure that the tiling that disallows for flooding of the neighbors' properties is intact. Let's have some kind of study done so that if solar companies are putting in solar panels and they're violating the tiling, then they have to replace it. That's got, from the beginning, that's got to work. I'd like to see that added. Hold on just a moment. My notes look like this, so I'm jumping around here on the page. I do believe, I respect my fellow council members who want moratorium, but I believe there are 5 of us against that idea. So I think, and I don't think, really, if we really think about it, do we want for 2 years this hanging over our heads, the solar companies and the people in the community? We're not sure what's going to happen in 2 years. We don't know because we got this moratorium, and we're going to get a decision in 2 years. I don't think we want that. I think we need some strong ideas, limits in place, like the special use permit, the setbacks, the buffering, and then we need to allow the council to evaluate each project individually. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I don't believe there was anybody else online wishing to speak in favor of this petition, was there?
No.
Seeing none, I will now ask for any of those present wishing to speak against this petition to please come forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Marcia Vargo. I live at 65960 Redwood Road, North Liberty, corner of State Road 4 and Redwood Road. I am not against all solar projects, but location matters. And this particular project in North Liberty is directly across and near a state park. And I find that to be crucial in this whole discussion. And these solar tax amendments really do not address that issue. First of all, solar energy projects are not agriculture. They are industrial, and they should be classified as such. Solar energy farms should never be put in sensitive areas. I personally consider Potato Creek State Park as a sensitive area. I don't know if all the people sitting up here have ever been to Potato Creek State Park, but it's 3,840 acres. It's described as a park with diverse habitats and wildlife. People come not only from in-state, but out of state to come to this park. This is really important. It is designated as an important bird area by the National Audubon Society, and it's also been designated as an important bird area by BirdLife International. That's important. This is a sensitive area of St. Joe County, and it should be protected. Solar farms across or near a state park is hazardous to the environment and the ecosystem of the park. Birds are attracted to the shininess of the solar panels. They think that that's a body of water. It's not. It's solar panels. They dive into this area, and it actually will either kill them or hurt them if they hit those panels. Not only birds, but insects and bats are also affected by solar panels. Furthermore, living next to a solar farm could be harmful to your health. This came from the World Health Organization. This isn't something I dreamed up. Solar power plants can cause significant habitat destruction. Solar farms are unsightly. They ruin the natural beauty of farmland and rural America. Solar farms can negatively affect property values, and some solar farms can even produce noise pollution. Public input rights were taken away in 2020 by this commission by saying solar energy is agriculture. This commission allowed large-scale solar projects in agricultural districts without a public hearing process. That is wrong. That is wrong for two reasons. Solar farms are not agriculture, and public input should be required. This is an important generational issue. Government is of the people. Government is by the people, and government is for the people. I plead with you to listen to the people. This project needs to be stopped because of its location to a state park, a sensitive area, and because of resistance by county residents who weren't able to have a voice in what's happening in their own backyard. Listen to the people and stop this solar madness. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Kevin Villela. I live in 69595 Primrose Road in Walkerton. I have many thoughts, which I will not share, because I'm sure you're sick of them at this point. I would just like to clarify, because I'm a bit confused at the last few hours. We are here to vote on the text of this amendment, either for in its entirety, against in its entirety, or table in its entirety, right?
The text amendments,
The
the
text
changes we're doing.
Okay,
The
yes.
ordinance is already there.
Right. This text amendment right here, yes, absolutely.
The commission can send it with a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation.
Right, exactly. But we're not voting for changes. We can pontificate and stuff, but the point of this is to do this in its entirety. With that in mind, I am against this amendment because while I think the first few of these are reasonable, I believe that the new development standards would create undue hardship on the developers. I also just want to note that I am in the area, very much so. I would see the solar panels every day, and I think that that is great because I would like to see clean, green energy in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Greg Weiss. I live at 69235 Pine Road in North Liberty. And again, we're addressing this change to, and I'm against it, but a lot of it I'm for. What I am against is I don't think solar panels are ugly. I don't think a solar farm is more invasive than farming. I have raised 4 children at my location, and I had a number of times when pesticides and herbicides were being applied on my neighbor's field as well as my field, and I asked numerous times for that not to happen. And finally I had to shut the farming down or change the farmer because pesticides and herbicides are very harmful to young children. I look at a solar farm and I see green energy. I see positive things happening to the environment with natural grasses and a resting of the soil. I see more positive than I see negative. And so I'm against the amendment only because I do think that the existing project should go forward as soon as possible. I also think that the setbacks, if it's 250 feet from a house, that's fine. I think 50 feet from a property line is fine. I think we don't need to change that. So I think we all need to consider the impact that this has on the environment and recognize that it is more positive than it is negative. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present wishing to speak against this petition?
Hello. First of all, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for our landowner rights and ask that no special permit is needed
Please
for
state your name and address.
Sorry?
Your name and address, please.
Oh, I'm Lynette Yoder, 68691 Redwood Road, Walkerton. So thank you for our landowner rights and ask that there's no special permit is needed for a solar facility on our land. It was always my husband and I's dream to become landowners, so nearly 10 years ago, as a young family, and by the grace of God, we made the decision and invested and worked very hard to own our land that we have. That being said, I also have concerns of the amount of pesticides that gets put on our land and the impact that it may have on our families and communities. So bringing a solar facility in would be a way of letting our land rest for a period of time while still providing income that would benefit our young family of 7. And even more, to create a cleaner environment around us. We have peace of mind knowing that Hexagon Energy has in its contract that after a time period of our lease, our land will be ready to plant and harvest again if we decide to do so. And I know there was a gentleman that spoke before me that mentioned of a hog barn in a subdivision. Our previous home, we didn't live in a subdivision, but there was a hog barn that was put right across the road from us and our neighbors. And talk about a detriment. It wasn't our say, and we certainly didn't enjoy the smell that would come in when we opened our windows or having to change our clothes after coming in from being outside. And believe me, there was no screening available for that. But we understood it wasn't our land, and the landowner was doing what he felt was needed to support himself and his family. So whether we decide to put solar panels on our land ourselves or lease it to a great company, it shouldn't make a difference. I think most everyone here today loves their rights and freedoms and wouldn't want that taken away from them, and I ask for the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else present wishing to speak against this text amendment change?
I'm a little emotional. Pam James, formerly Pamela Clark. I live at 25891 Riley Road in North Liberty, Indiana. And while I was kind of like, do I get up here for the favorable? Because I'm happy to see the special use being considered. I will say personally that I've heard people talk about I guess my opposition would be the 150 setback that's being considered. I raised my boys. I'm actually back where my grandparents actually homesteaded in North Liberty. We live 2 miles south of Potato Creek. And so when I hear about like the neighbors, I'm gonna be one of the neighbors that looks right across from the road. And it's the lady that owns a big parcel of land that's being considered that doesn't live in the area. I heard Wagner talk about that. He doesn't live around the stuff that's being proposed. It's a different area. And so when I talk about the amendments, if you look at what the companies are looking at in that area that is so sensitive, where my grandparents, when I have my garden and my natural, and I look at, they're only proposing these minimal sunbacks. It's the non-participating people that leave behind for future generations. And that's where it's not, I think about the fencing and the wildlife that transports, from the bald eagles that come from Potato Creek, from the sandhill crane migrations that head to Pulaski. I think about these corridors with the fencing around solar fields. So it becomes very personal when somebody actually lives right there where the solar field, and I didn't, I moved back to 2005 when my grandparents and my uncle passed away, and it was my great-grandmother's house. And now I'm raising this family, and I'm just seeing that the density, and so when I think about these, yes, while there are, I'm glad it's a good start. Like, I'm so happy, to see decommissioning, but it's one of the things that I'm most concerned about is not having public input on this, that the people that actually really live around this, so the one house that owns 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, but the people that are gobbling up the areas of these big solar, they don't live directly around those for the most part. If you look at the zoning maps of or the parcel lands on MACOG's website, as I've studied this, the solar where they've approached it, this was the first time I ever heard was when it was raised in the media a few weeks ago. And I took personal time off from work to be here because I felt passionate about protecting this. And at least if the amendments are going to be at least a start, and I'm glad I heard from Fig and Drake at least this past week, is at least if we could consider, minimum sandbag fine. I would love to see it if somebody's not participating in that the rule goes greater for those areas, because I do have to look at that every day. I moved back to my family's land, and to think that I'm going to be surrounded by something that is different than that landscape that was there. So we're just thinking of future generations. Please consider that for the people that actually live directly in there. And I do ask everybody that has not visited that area to look at the map on what's being proposed for the density, because this area is not like the Mammoth Solar Power. It's North Liberty, and it's where, so I just say, think about in a thoughtful approach to where the large-scale energy systems are being put in. So special use, happy to see it, but I think there's larger protections that can be considered. So thank you for all your hard work.
Anybody else present wishing to speak against this text amendment changes? Seeing none, is there anybody else in the auxiliary area? Is that pretty much emptied out?
There's a couple people, but I don't see anybody moving.
Okay. Is there anybody online wishing to speak against this text amendment changes? Please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, I will now close the public portion. Staff, you want to comment, rebut?
Do you all have questions?
Well, do you want to, I'm assuming there's still rebuttal for since staff is really the.
I do have a couple questions.
I think
That's
if you
fine.
guys just want to go ahead with
Okay.
questions, we can go from there.
So, a lot of the pollinator questions have come up. Who does pay attention to that, and who does make sure that that's continued and that it's actually planted and so on and so forth? Who polices that?
It's reviewed at the time it submits for commercial plan review. So the ordinance currently Abby Wiles, EPC Director. The ordinance requires, as stated previously, 2 square feet of pollinator seed mix per 1 square foot of panel area. For the other large-scale projects, the ordinance references a technical guide from MACOG. There's a scorecard that Purdue University put out that we've requested our large-scale projects to use, and then it was reviewed by us. We sought review of the scorecard after it had been approved from the Soil and Water Conservation District, which is part of why we've requested funds for a third-party review to make sure that what was being planted was not detrimental to the surrounding area or the land.
But in 5 years, who polices it? Like, how do we know that it's actually still there, and taken over, or died off, or any of that? I guess is my question.
That would fall under the arena of zoning enforcement, and that's complaint-based. So if, you know, a person in the community drives by a solar facility that's supposed to have certain kinds of plants, and they don't, they can call area plan, and they'll start the zoning enforcement process.
All right.
DJ, please make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
You can't hear me? I'm not loud enough?
I know the people in the back can't, so.
Oh, Dan can hear me. He can hear me. Okay, that's really all. That was my biggest thing that I had a question on.
Anybody else have any concerns, comments, questions?
Questions or comments?
Either.
Robert Krasinski. I've heard from a lot of people this afternoon and, well, this evening, and I'm a backtrack a little bit here. As a former councilman that helped negotiate the honeysuckle project, and Darren Jacobs is here, and Mr. Morton here, or Councilman Morton is here. Back when we negotiated or discussed the honeysuckle project, there was quite a bit of public comment, I believe. And I think the records will indicate that the council at that time, we tabled the honeysuckle project a few times to get to the position that we wanted to be at that, for that location. And at that time, that was the only one that was being present in front of us. Now, Councilwoman Drake, I'm sorry, Councilman Thomas, Councilman Schatzel, Councilman Tanner have all made comments this evening, along with Councilman Fig. All of them have bring up excellent points, because these are two different projects. Councilman Thomas and I have had discussions. I know there's been a few meetings behind the scenes in regards to the special use permit and the text amendment here. I have not been a part of any of them. Do I agree with the text amendments that's on the board now? Yes, but there's a lot more that can be done, and I hope the county council takes a lot of these suggestions that I will be glad to sit down with them to bring forward, because I can't bring them forward now because we can't change what's up there now. But we need to protect the homeowners and the landowners, which the previous council and this current council is looking at. We have to do that. This is a good start. That's been said many a times. This is a good start, but it can't be done in a week or in 2 weeks or in a month. Has there been transparency with the people in North Liberty? I do not know all that. Do not know that. I can't answer that question. But sitting up here, I know I can, myself, can try to do some things to protect everybody involved, for and against. So I hope I get the opportunity to do that, because I will speak in front of the county council if I have to voice my opinions. And if anybody knows me, I can voice my opinion. So there's things that can be done here, and the current county council members that have spoke tonight are addressing them, and they need to be seriously looked at. And I hope they are, along with other issues that have not been addressed. Let's not look at just everything above ground, but let's start looking at things below ground also. I've got emails here from the company that's presented the solar farm, which I cannot bring up because it doesn't pertain to what we're looking at this evening. But eventually, the issues will come up, and I hope the county council addresses them because it's important to the residents of North Liberty in this case, because these are two different projects. So am I in favor of this text amendment? I am, because I want to move it forward. But getting to that point, let's slow down and make sure we get everything in it that we can. Are we going to make everybody happy? No. I officiated high school, college, minor league baseball for 23 years. Did I make everybody happy? No. And that's where we're at. But we have to come to a happy medium somewhere to move this project forward. And I hope we do.
You guys got anything? All right. So as of one of the members that was in that meeting with the county commissioners, the county council, area plan, Abby and Fariel and Adam as the chair of the AP, or the president of the APC, and myself as the chair of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, we sat down and we were in that meeting. We had it slated for an hour, and we were there for almost 2, right? And we couldn't stay any longer because we all had meetings that we had to get to, and we were planning on and getting back to this. After a ton of emails back and forth, right, between all the parties at hand, I will say that this is probably the best compromise that you're gonna get between area plan, APC, or I'm sorry, area plan, the commissioners, the county council, Board of Zoning Appeals, right? And it doesn't just end with us. There's a meeting on July 9th for the county council that, by the way, you only get 3 minutes to talk at, but that's your time that you can go and you can talk about your moratorium and all of your extra things that you want to add to it, because we can't change anything right now, right? We're voting favorable, unfavorable, or tabling it. And so the county council is in the hot seat right now, and those are the people that you guys need to be talking to. There's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here tonight that have talked about it. And most of them have all been in favor of this text amendment, but it doesn't, just because this is what's possibly being put in place tonight, is not the end, all right? The county council is really the one that has the end say on a project-to-project basis if this gets put through with a favorable recommendation. And it doesn't just have a blanket slate like it kind of does right now, right? So if this text amendment does go through, every project is basically a project-to-project. They can have 250 feet, they can have 500 feet, they can have 750 feet, they can have whatever they decide that they want to put in place with their written commitments for that particular project. So I would make it a point or try to get everybody there that feels this strongly. I think I counted 47 people that talked for it on Zoom and in person, and there was 5 that talked against it. And a lot of, I counted, this is a good start, 79 times. So your county council is your chance to talk to them, and that's July 9th, if I remember correctly. I appreciate everybody taking their time and spending, where are we at? We're at 3 hours now, right? Talking about this petition. And your board members, your area plan, your county council, we're putting a lot of work into this, and we've heard a lot of people and their complaints and their suggestions, and this is where we're at. So we are doing the work. We're not paid to be up here, right? We're here as a volunteer or an appointed position. And so we are hearing what everybody is saying, and we are working with everybody. So I need everybody to understand that, so.
I'm not paid for this position.
You're
I'm paid for another one, but not this
so,
one. I'll see if you're done.
I'm good to go.
I'll say a couple quick things, unless somebody else wants to talk, and then we can vote. Yeah, like DJ said, I was involved in those conversations with bringing this forward as far as these amendments and these modifications. I'm a builder, I'm a contractor. Every day, every second is a new challenge, right? There's always a constant change, a constant challenge. There's always a variable that gets thrown in your way, right? I mean, that's life. But you have to make an adjustment and move on. You can't put life on hold and think things are going to change. It's just not going to happen. You make an adjustment, you move on, hope for the best. If that doesn't work, you make another adjustment. That's what text amendments are. Something's not working, you make adjustments to these text amendments. That's what we're doing here. So putting a year, 2-year, 5-year, 10-year moratorium, is that going to solve any answers? No, it's not. Are you going to get any other answers? You might get some answers, but you can't put life on hold to hope for the best. That's not realistic. So make changes as you go. If those don't work, make other changes. It's kind of how life works. So I'm all for adjusting, modifying as you go. I have to do it in my day-to-day business whenever I get a chance to do that in between all these meetings I'm involved in, like DJ said. But that's what this process is all about. I think these are great compromises on every side. Is it the perfect answer? No, it's not. It's never going to be. Can we make other adjustments? Yes, we can. But I think this is a great start. Personally, I'm for keeping it as a allowed use. But I'm also, we're not allowed to make those amendments. I'm okay passing this as, leaving that as the way it's presented. But I would rather see it as left alone as it currently sits. But I like the changes. I think these are great start to the right track for these upcoming, hopefully, projects, hopefully not. But mainly because, as a contractor, I like to know a clear path to what my potential project could be. On a much smaller scale than some of these projects like these, but if I don't have a clear path, am I gonna pull the trigger to do something? Probably not. That's a big risk for a company to come in and say, if I have to get a special use, is that gonna happen or not? Because a couple people don't like me or like my company. It shouldn't be about what company's coming in or what company's not. It should be about what standards we put forth right here, right now, and can we abide by these, no matter what company is coming in? So, my 2 cents for what it's worth, but I am in favor of these text amendment changes.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead.
For those of you that have been talking about solar should be zoned industrial, once you take a piece of property and you zone it industrial, you have forever taken that piece of property, well, probably. For the most part, you've probably always and forever taken that piece of property out of ag use, right? So if it stays ag and they're able to do that, these are only gonna probably get a better and better and better as it goes on in public comment and the county council gets together. Ag is the best result to make sure that property is able to be used in 20 years or 50 years or whatever it may be, right? So if we zone it industrial, it's industrial. And then you're not stuck with a solar farm right next to you, you're stuck with whatever they want to put there, right? So that's my last 2 cents, sorry. So,
Any other comments? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Before you do that, just want to quickly clarify a couple things. There was a couple mentions of the default standards for commercial solar energy systems. That's an Indiana state code. Our research was comparing to other counties, not to that. So you are voting on a special use. The process for a special use would be sent to our Area Board of Zoning Appeals, not the APC. I think there was one comment about that.
I can't wait.
Just want to make sure you know. And they would vote for similar, favorable, unfavorable, and then ultimately the county council.
Did I say that?
No, there were some public comments, I think, maybe saying it would come back, or wasn't clear if it would come back to this body. I just want to make it clear it would come back to the ABZA. and then, which is, it's very similar recommendation and ultimately to county council.
Let's go.
All right.
All right, I'll make a motion that we send, well, hold on, I gotta get back to it. Send APC 304424 with a favorable recommendation to the St. Joseph County County Council.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to send, excuse me, I'm sorry. To send APC 3044-24 to the St. Joseph County Council with a favorable recommendation. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. England?
Yes.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. Is that 7? Is that everybody?
That was everybody.
Motion carries.
6, because.
Oh, that's right, Gene, that's right. I'm like, why are we
One's
off?
abstained.
Yeah. Motion
Now let him
carries.
know he can come back.
Mr. Mansett, if you're still in the lobby, please come in.
As you exit, please keep in mind that we are still in session, so if you have any conversations, please take them outside of the hall.
Let's wait a second until it clears out.
What? It was worse than you thought? No, it wasn't.
I found him, he's still awake.
I was trying to give him a couple minutes.
I know you're being patient. I know you.
Know something there.
Yeah, just a few.
There was a game that they were starting to play. Did you catch on to that?
I mean, it's up to Adam. Do you want to take like a short break now or
do you
try
just wanna keep
to, try to push through?
Okay.
Okay, stepped out for a
Where did
second.
PJ go?
Do you want me to,
Let's wait a second while
Okay.
everybody clears out, so.
He's back.
Local contractor to help me put in a culvert. They tried.
oh,
Okay. Shelley, let's resume
My agenda.
really quickly.
A proposed ordinance amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code, Section 154.318, to address legally established nonconforming uses within the Indiana Enterprise Center Overlay District. APC application 3042-24 as tabled.
all right. This is Abby Wiles, Area Plan Commission Director. This is an amended version of the text amendment that was presented for the IEC Overlay District at last month's meeting. The change before you tonight has slightly amended language. We previously suggested a 50% change in impervious surface or building area as being a trigger to be upheld to the standards in the IEC overlay district. We have brought back a change that takes that threshold to 25%, which is what was originally proposed in the IEC overlay that was presented November 2022. Additionally, in regards to non-conforming uses within the IEC overlay, staff prepared a review of all uses. That's what spreadsheet is included in your packets. Staff found that there is at least one other existing non-conforming use than the one previously discussed. And additionally, one use within the county portion of the IEC overlay may be non-conforming, but we would need more information about manufacturing processes to confirm that. Furthermore, if you looked at the section within the core development area that is in the town of New Carlisle, and under that jurisdiction, if the IEC overlay were applied as originally intended, 2 additional uses would be non-conforming. So the text amendment could potentially impact up to 4, maybe 5 non-conforming uses within the IEC core development area. Asking for your favorable recommendation and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any other questions? No?
So, sorry, I do. Just to clarify, the ones that we were worried about, they are under the IEC overlay use. It's the prohibited, the ones listed as prohibited on there, on the table.
Yes, let me see.
Mario, you want to change the slides on the?
I think there's also one that's a conditional use that doesn't have one.
Yes, Smith Ready Mix is a non-conforming use, as well as a cell tower. One additional use, depending on the manufacturing processes, might be considered non-conforming. And then if applied to the town of New Carlisle, Cleveland Cliffs and Air Gas would potentially be non-conforming if the IEC overlay were applied to them.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and open this to the public, right? Yep. Is there anybody present wishing to speak in favor of this text amendment? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening, Bill Shalio. Solar is back. No, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot why we're here. No, I'm here, Bill Shalio, Economic Development Director, offices on 7th and 11th floor, part of the Department of Infrastructure Planning Growth, here in support of this ordinance. This ordinance was originally parts of this ordinance were originally part of the overlay ordinance. When the overlay ordinance was modified and reduced, this provision was taken out. And so by not allowing these non-conforming uses to be able to expand, Smith Ready Mix, Alcogen perhaps Cleveland Cliffs, Tech and Code, Air Gas, this really creates a hardship. In this particular case, we think this is a reasonable ordinance change. Again, I think there's a specific case why this has come forward, but again, I think if we look bigger picture, there's other businesses that this could impact. Alcogen, we know, is doing some expansion, and we'd hate to see that project, for example, fall on this. Without this change, there's no ability to apply for a variance or anything else. So we would ask for you to consider this provision, please.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Is that 2 in a row, Dan?
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street. I just have, the language is a little confusing to me, which that isn't hard to do. Where it says non-conforming, the non-conforming being redlined in the language, does this mean we're now going to allow non-conforming product to expand at more than 25% if they should be allowed in? I mean, if there be a variance, will they be allowed to expand, come in with more than a 25% footprint of whatever property they happen to take? And as I read number 6, which talks about, oh gosh, hold on. Well, does number 6 in that in the information, is that what now legalizes the 2 concrete pads that Ozinga has already laid on the land there? And that, so, but I'm for these changes. I'm just curious as to, is there any effects down the road that we don't realize now that may come up later? Is this how we get Ozinga being legal in the property by allowing the increase? I just don't. I'm not understanding what important. Is it 25%? Okay, for instance, Smith was grandfathered in because they were there before the overlay was created. They then acquired some more property to the south of them. Is just their original property that they had when the overlay was created, is that the 25% they're limited to using? Or because now they have that property to the south with the 2 concrete pads that Ozinga is using, is that part of the 25% of the property that they're using? It's a little confusing to me. I'm sure I've confused the heck out of you guys, but it was just, it seemed, I like the changes, but yeah, thank you.
I'll answer in a second. Thanks, Dan. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none. What's that? Is anybody online wishing to speak in favor? Steve? Go ahead. Please state your name and address.
Okay, Steve Francis, Judy Lake Drive, Clay Township. I went home. I'm home now. But I did want to speak to this. I really appreciate, I wanted to come full circle. I was one of those who was, concerned about the 50% last time, and you tabled it and then worked on it some more. And I recognize and acknowledge you came back with the 25%, I think is reasonable, given that those businesses were in there before the overlay was put into place. I do share Dan's, question, Dan Caruso's question about, is it 25% of their existing footprint, or if they buy or lease new land, is it 25% of that, of the total? I think there's just some confusion there, because we're not sure how that occurred. And I did want to say too that, we're not trying to be like a bee in the room or something. We just really do appreciate the overlay being in place and want to make sure that it's followed. And if it isn't, then we have to work out some kind of compromise, and appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else online wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none. Anybody present? Oh, wait. Mary? Are you in favor?
Hi, excuse me.
Go ahead, Mary. Are you in favor of this petition?
I am not sure. I have reread this same, I'm sorry, Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle. I have reread this same page about 4 or 5 times now, and I think it needs to be a little clearer. I'm not sure if I'm for it or against it, so thank you.
Okay. What are your concerns, I guess, while you're on?
Well, what Dan mentioned, but I was under the impression that basically everything in existence already out there was grandfathered in for what they had, but now it sounds like am I reading it correctly that you're allowing extra nonconformances? Not legally non-conforming uses do not have a practical option to legalize the use. So they're non-conforming, but you're allowing them to be legal. You're changing it to be legal. I don't know. I guess I don't understand. It's very. I think the wording could be better. It looks like it's open. It's going to be open for more controversy in the future. That's my thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Anybody else online wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none. Anybody present wishing to speak against this petition? Seeing none. Anybody online wishing to speak against this petition? Please use the raise hand feature. Again, seeing none, I will now close it to the public. Do you want to clarify or clarify?
So essentially, what this particular amendment does in its current form is it says, if a particular property was being used at the time that the overlay was put in place for a non-overlay allowed use for like a square footage, surface area, and impervious surface of, say, 4,000 square feet, they would be able to increase by up to 1,000 more square feet.
They can expand their business, essentially.
Yes.
On that particular property. 'Cause I think that was the other confusion, right? That if they were to purchase another, but then they would not be, that would be illegal.
The use
That
would have been established. The addition of property is only relevant to the extent of, would it allow a 25% increase of the original usage square feet? So if they added property, but their current property was big enough that they can fully utilize the 25% increase on the property they're on, even if they bought more, they couldn't expand further.
So it's irrelevant if they purchase more property, that would be illegal currently, right? On that property, the new property.
If they combine it into the same parcel, it's all part of the same use and it's all owned by the same person. If their 25% increase expanded onto that property, I wouldn't consider that to be illegal, but they still wouldn't get any more.
But they can only expand up to 25% more.
Yes.
Regardless. how much
Whether they
property
add more property, they can get more, like, 50 acres more, it would not change how much they would be allowed to expand.
So if they have a 10,000 square foot building, they can only expand 25% regardless of how much property they own.
Yes.
Okay.
You had the other.
Was there any other questions
I
that they
think
had?
you answered Bob's.
Okay, I think we covered.
Any questions by commission?
Comment?
Yeah, good, yep, comments, good.
Thank you for bringing the list of businesses, because that's helpful. And I also just wanted to comment, we last time had concerns about water potentially, how water was going to be affected, and I have an email from Jared Huss, who's our engineer in town, and he had no worries about that due to different mitigating groups that would be involved in different things with permitting and different protection plans and things that are in place. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, that he did not see any issue with that site in particular that this was derived from. So.
Do we need to make a note that Tom had to leave? Just point of notice that Tom England had to step out from the meeting, so he is no longer present. There's no other comments. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to send a favorable recommendation to St. Joseph County Council for APC 3042-24.
Molly Hannon, I second.
We have a motion and a second to send APC 3042-24 to the St. Joseph County Council with a favorable recommendation. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. Vote is 6-0 and carries. We have one item, one resolution not requiring a public hearing.
A resolution of the St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission approving a resolution of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Commission declaring an area in St. Joseph County, Indiana as an economic development area and approving an economic development plan for said area, Northern Edge Economic Development Area. APC application number R-265-24.
Oh, I guess we're not doing, okay, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Good evening, Bill Shalio, Economic Development Director, St. Joseph County. Before you today is resolution number 2265-24. This is a resolution that supports the action the Redevelopment Commission took on June 11th, 2024, by passing resolution number 2024-09. The purpose of that resolution was a declaratory resolution to establish a new economic development area called the Northern Edge Economic Development Area. The Northern Edge project is a multi-use project at the northeast corner of State Road 933 and Douglas Road. I think that has been before you for rezoning and some PUD and some other stuff over the last couple of years. This is a project developed on land that Notre Dame owns. So the proposal is to create this economic development area on this land, so it would actually have 3 separate allocation areas within the footprint, and then a 4th allocation area that runs up State Road 933, and right now would flagpole up to the former Holiday Inn site just south of the toll road. So in your packet is a map that shows the 4 allocation areas, and so what we would propose and ask for your approval today is asking for your approval of this resolution, which then again supports the approval of the Redevelopment Commission's resolution. If you approve today, it goes on to the Board of Commissioners next Tuesday. It then goes back to the Redevelopment Commission for a confirming resolution before it then goes on to the council for some additional actions. At some point along the way, it'll stop at the Economic Development Commission as we look to have bonding capacity and bonding authority as part of the project. It'll then come back to the council for the final approval for the bonding approval and the designation of the area. So multiple steps in this process. We've had a lot of coordination with the town of Roseland. They're very supportive of this concept because there's an opportunity to capture revenue from this project to do projects in the town of Roseland area. So we think this is a great opportunity for that corridor. It's an area that we just haven't really had a tool set to do anything with, and we think this is a great way to kind of start that process. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Bill. And this does not need a public hearing, so do we have any questions, comments? Otherwise, do we have a motion?
This is just an approval, right?
Yep.
You're approving the resolution that gives your approval to the declaratory.
All right, this is DJ. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-09.
Your resolution is 26524.
Wait,
So
which
say,
one?
what number are you looking?
I don't know.
I think he was taking that off of the declaratory resolution that the RDC passed.
Right here.
You want to amend your motion?
Yeah, I'll make 26524, is that it? Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the other one up here. All right, it's DJ, I'll make a motion that we approve APC resolution 265-24.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution APC R 265-24. All those in favor? I guess we'll roll call vote. We've been doing that the rest of the day, so.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Roush?
Yep.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
We have a few findings of the facts to approve.
If you would like, you can approve all of the findings of facts for both special uses and variances at the same time. If somebody makes a motion like that.
Robert Krasinski, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the findings of the facts for May 21st, 2024 for both the special use and the variances. Vote, please.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. And we do have a few minutes. Do we have to vote on them individually? Can we vote on them all together?
If anybody has like one that they need to pull out to make corrections to, you'd need to vote on that one separately. If you don't have any corrections to any of them, you can vote on all of them.
Anybody have any corrections to the minutes, or do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
January is when the building had to be closed due to the heat.
Move and have 2 in February.
We have 2 in February.
Okay. All right, this is DJ. I'll make a motion that we approve December 19th, 2023 and February 6th, 2024 minutes.
Not the 20th?
What? I don't have that.
Look at your agenda.
I'm looking at mine. All right. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for December 19th,
Long day yesterday.
2023, February 6th, 2024, and February 20th, 2024. Is that better? I'll second it.
Second. Robert Kuzinski, I'll second.
Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Mr. Mansett?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Devon.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Executive Director's report, Abby.
All right, attached in your packets is a summary of land use petitions that have come through the board and gone on to council and the outcomes. There are also project updates for a number of items that Area Plan Commission staff are working on. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Nothing else? Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Robert Krasinski, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You opposed?
No.
Thank you, everybody.